Okay.
And we are live!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Those Aren't Biscuits. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Knott, and with me, as always, the one, the only, the man who blessed the rains down in Africa, Owen Adams.
I did bless the rains down in Africa. And also, do years since she's been away, Rosanna, do. I was thinking about Toto recently, not the band, but the little dog, and I don't remember if I said this on the podcast, right? But have you ever noticed there's a really, really important plot hole in The Wizard of Oz?
And that is...
Okay, so, the whole premise of The Wizard of Oz is Dorothy, she's a little kid, she lives in Kansas, she's got a really shitty, horrible neighbor, and the dog, like, bites the neighbor, and the woman goes to have him put down.
Yeah, are you talking about, like... You're talking about like how at the end, like that none of that actually gets resolved.
Right, that dog is still gonna die. Like, she's like, oh, and you were there, and you were there, and you were there. Oh, hold on, where's Toto? Pretty sure he was there. I don't see him, Auntie M. See, he must have gone somewhere while I was unconscious, right?
It's like,
right.
Yeah. He went to another farm.
He's in Oz.
Oh, hold on for that. You guys might be hearing a little bit of an echo here soon. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, you wouldn't get that these days in a movie, right? That, like, because that movie clearly, like, just doesn't think that bit's important, right? Like, we've moved on,
right?
We've moved on from the plot about the dog people.
I think is that like the it was her teacher, wasn't it?
Joe, I don't know. They just call her Mrs. Gulch.
Okay. I think the idea, because she did show up and she was concerned for Dorothy, right?
I don't think so. I mean, she's pretty much just evil. And doesn't like dogs.
Anyway. All right. Well, hello, Chicken Lisa, Sam Foreman, and Sinister Mister. How's it going? For those of you who might be new to the show, this is a pop culture talk show where we talk about things from comics to video games to books to music to movies to television and everything in between. And we do that with your input as well. So if you guys have a comment, you have a question, you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, lay it in the chat. We'll get to it as soon as we can or when we remember. Usually how that goes.
Wait, is John streaming? His voice is louder. No, we just haven't balanced it right.
Okay, yeah. So this is the first segment of our show where we balance out our volume.
Tiny Bitsuka says, "Yeah, John is loud." I just like the idea that this. Well, for people who don't know, this actually is a semi-fictional show in which a British man does a podcast with a giant.
Yes. Okay, is that a fat joke?
No. For people who don't know, this used to be a podcast, so a lot of our early episodes, which lay the foundation of this, you know, like in podcast world, over on Libsyn, which you can still find if you're interested.
Yeah, they're still there.
There's an episode about 3 episodes in where John actually grinds someone's bones to make his bread.
Yeah, it was delicious, by the way. It was just...
Yeah. Sort of a brittle bone sourdough.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing quite like a marble rye where the marble is marrow.
A marrow rye.
Yeah, a marrow rye.
Yeah, okay. And tiger bread made from real tigers.
No, those are endangered.
You guys got tiger bread over there?
No.
Well, it's nice. It's a nice fresh soft loaf made. And then what they do is they give it kind of a glaze in a sort of a sesame oil, and a few other things.
What is with the UK and glazing everything?
No, I don't mean like a Krispy Kreme glaze. I just mean like a coating. It's not like a thick sweet glaze or anything, but it's just a kind of a sesame flavored oil, and what it does is it makes the crust sort of ripple and crack like well, they call it tiger because it looks a bit like tiger stripes. The bread goes nice and orange. It's really nice. good. Just check it out.
Chicken Lisa says, so say I gotta go. Hope to be back before you finish up. We hope you return. That'd be nice. Rob
Baby,
Chaosity says, hello.
Maybe please don't go. Sorry. I'm being bumblebee lately.
Wrong, and I just can't live without you.
Hadn't been cut, now Joe. I've been married long time ago.
Long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from? Cotton Eye Joe.
You're listening to the Top 40 1997 here on.
Was Baby Come Back in the top 40 in 1996 in the UK?
It sometimes takes a while for the hits to make it over.
It's like here your top 5. We have Spice Girls, we have Oasis, we have Robbie someone, and then Tom Jones, the Monkees.
Yes, check out
In
the
Excess.
That was Nelly. It's getting hot in here. Now let's cut to our next big hit of the month. What's new, Pussycat? Whoa!
Tiny Messages, when you sing together, it becomes like a round robin because of the minor delays. Yeah, it's actually kind of works sometimes.
It's the best bit.
Basically, John was doing so well until he got to Robbie. I can't remember his last name.
Coltrane.
Yeah, Robbie Coltrane. Robbie Shakespeare. He wrote a whole bunch of sonnets.
The lesser known Shakespeare brother.
Yeah, Robbie Shakespeare.
No relation.
Thinking of Robbie. He was huge. He was part of a boy band.
Yeah.
At first.
I know exactly who you mean.
Oh, well, tell me his name.
It was Jones.
Robbie Jones. Yeah, sure. What the fuck? Robbie Williams?
Yeah.
No,
Robbie
that's
Williams.
That's Robin Williams.
No, Robbie. His name was Robbie Williams instead of Robin Williams. They were very similar, but in name. But yes, you're thinking of Robbie Williams. He did Let Me Entertain You, Angels, She's the One.
Right. Is his name really Robbie Williams?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Also, he's the voice of the genie in Aladdin.
God damn it. God damn it.
His name was Robbie Williams, though. That is who you're thinking of.
Okay. Yeah, Fairlyn Jones says hi, and Robbie Williams. Thank you, Fairlyn Jones.
Coming up, the new co-host of our podcast, Robbie Williams.
She's the one. That's actually not a bad song. I like that song.
She offered me
affection.
When I run, something about a waterfall, wherever it may take me.
Look at my pectoral muscles.
Did you get Ronan Keating over there? Also
no,
from the
not
boy
really.
band. He had a nice little growl to him. Roar.
So Tiny Back Sticker says he lived in America too. Now he's a judge on X Factor with his wife. Oh, that's nice. Mrs. Williams.
Margot Robbie Williams.
Margot Robbie Williams. Is that who he's married to? Is
No.
Margot Robbie? Oh,
No,
okay.
it was just a bad joke.
Oh, I was like, that'd be kind of amazing. Yeah, I you know what? I'm not 100% familiar with his music, but I've seen him in like appearances and stuff. He seems like he has a pretty good sense of humor about himself.
Yeah. Yeah, he's all right.
Yeah, and that's something I can always appreciate in a musician, whether or not I like the music or not. If they're kind of just like, yeah, I'm kind of not a big deal sort of thing. Like I like that. Yeah.
Well, they can't all be
Morrissey.
John Lennon. Morrissey.
Boss says, Boss says, is this a solo stream by John? Can you not hear Owen?
I hope they can. Otherwise, that's going to be a really strange show. Maybe it's just wishful thinking. Maybe he goes into every stream asking that.
So I went on a little bit of a binge the last few days on Watch Mojo lists.
Oh god.
I do that.
It's not worth it, John. Turn back now.
No, they're like generally they're pretty good when it comes to the music ones. And the ones I was watching were like the biggest jerks in the music industry, and then most overrated artist in the music industry. And that kind of tone.
Right.
And every single one of them had Morrissey on it, which made me really laugh because he's such an asshole.
He's terrible.
Such a pompous prick.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories about Morrissey, when people say, "Oh, like he's really changed in recent years. Fame really ruined him." And then I like to remind people that for years, he and the other like main guy in the Smiths weren't actually paying the other two founder members a legal share because they were like using clever accounting to fiddle them out of it, and then tried to defend in court that they'd always agreed that they're like, well, we do most of the work, so which is not how most bands set up. It's how most bands end up with like one person owning it. But no, they were all founder members, and they've been conning them out of money for years and years.
Oh, okay. So blah says, just making fun because Owen said he was off, and then Tiny Batsuga says Owen is addicted to streaming and can't take a proper holiday.
Yeah, that's true.
I pulled him out of retirement.
I'm too old for this shit. Riggs.
I'm 5 days away from retirement. 5 streams away from retirement.
Are you trying to kill me?
Just saying, you might not make it through this one. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to do it.
I'll be back for a sequel with Gary Busey.
But no, like that's one of the things I've been doing. Have you been doing anything this week?
I watched Infinity War again because that's just come out on Blu-ray. I watched that today, which holds up pretty well. Still,
it was out over here for a while already.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. I don't know. I've got to wait for him to come out in my country.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I didn't know why they split the releases like that. I never fully understood that.
Money. That's like whatever. I'm sure it'll come down to that money.
Right.
Yeah. So I watched that again today, and it was pretty good. I think the second time around you can we talked about all this when it first came out, but it's a little more obvious. Things like Captain America's really not in that film that much. You know, he's quite downplayed. Things like you see more stuff like that, but just still hold up pretty great. It's a great looking film. You know.
Yeah. It is really pretty, and like there's something I never really mentioned while we talked about before, but there was something about it's such a minor thing, but like the font that they use to like signify like where they're at.
Right.
I really like that font. It's like the Stargate font, you know?
Right. Classy.
Yeah, that you know, heavily serifed font, you know, where it's kind of skinny on one side, but then it gets bigger, and it's a nice font.
It's good. It's good. It looks just normal enough that you could imagine writing a paper in it, but just sort of classy and fancy enough that it looks okay in a movie.
And you know what? Like that. Like, welcome to Those Aren't Biscuits, the font channel. But it's something that I don't think enough people really give credit to. But you can actually set up the feeling of a movie by the font used in those sort of sequences where, like, okay, they're at planet blah 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 blah, time blah blah blah, you know, whatever. The font they use can movie like especially sci-fi, right? Sci-fi movies that like take place in more like industrial closed-in areas, like a like Alien, right?
Right.
They always use that kind of terminal display. So thing like really blocky, basic, to the point, no frills font.
Right.
You know, like it coming off of a computer terminal.
Well, I think another good example is take a movie like Star Wars, right?
Sure.
Now most of the in-game fonts and stuff, in-movie fonts and stuff like that is weird alien language and stuff. But when you actually look at the opening crawl to Star Wars, because Star Wars is kind of an interesting property. It's science fiction, but it's not really science fiction in tone. It's going for kind of a timeless feel. And when you look at the opening crawl font for Star Wars, it's plain, but it's kind of clean and round and timeless. It doesn't have a very specific style. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And so when you there's the actual title of the movie, but when you get into that opening crawl, it's very much not a science fiction font.
Right. So like I think there's a sort of like regalness, right, to like the font used in Infinity War.
Right.
Like and oddly enough, it's the sort of font that's also pops up in like Dune, you know?
For sure.
Dune and like I said, Stargate as well. We're talking about like vast, I don't want to say epics of movies, but these are large, grandiose affairs, right?
And it's very different to the type of font you would have seen in Avengers Assemble or Age of Ultron.
Right.
Age of Ultron has an explicitly comic booky font. Because it's a very comic booky movie.
Absolutely. So yeah, fonts. But yeah, you watch Infinity War again. So.
Well, one of my favorite YouTube videos actually about fonts. It's the one with the guy pointing out that all the movie titles use Trajan. You ever seen that one?
No.
He basically says, "Come on, guys, enough with the Trajan," and then he goes and shows all these movie posters that use Trajan for no reason, and it just looks terrible. And there are all these other fonts you can use, but they always seem to fall back to Trajan. And then he says some things manage to avoid Trajan in the theaters, and he shows like the poster of Hotel Rwanda, but then end up with Trajan on DVD. It's a really good, if you find, I think it's called Trajan the Movie Font. If you can find that video, it's really good. But no, I watched Infinity War again, and it was good. I liked it. I think it was
still good.
Yeah, I still think the strongest thing of that movie is that it manages to take so many different plot elements and characters and never feel like you're watching a complete shit show.
So after watching the second time, do you agree now that Thanos is right?
No. No, and I still don't agree with a lot of the common criticisms of that movie, which is people who say Thanos is too nice. The movie seems to... I've seen a lot of people say that the movie wants you to side with Thanos, and I think that's bullshit.
Right.
I think the movie explicitly doesn't want you to side with Thanos by virtue of having all these characters who are clearly clever characters you're supposed to side with spend all the movie calling him a murderer. And the fact that Thanos' own justifications are occasionally kind of dumb, megalomaniacal, and very rarely built on reason. Like, when you listen to the things he says, he has motivations, and those motivations actually come from a good place. But his justifications are only ever things like appeals to emotion or appeals to authority.
Right.
Like, someone has to have the strength to do it. Someone has to do this. Someone has to do that. I'm the only one who can see how much danger he is. But he never actually puts forward like an argument. Whereas lots of other people come at him by saying things like, "No, this is basically genocide and you're killing people."
You know he is. He's that asshole at work who continually volunteers to do the really shit job and then expects you to like be really sad for him, you know?
Right.
Like, oh god, it looks like we need someone to work, work a triple shift today because we got a lot of call in. Well, I suppose I'm gonna have to be the one to do it.
Sinister Minister in chat says, Helvetica, baby. That's becoming the new font for sure. No, I think too many people. I think it actually speaks to a really worrying lack of basic critical thinking. Actually, that so many people can't watch a movie in which a clearly villainous villain who is clearly the villain is given a motivation that's supposed to be internally consistent to him, and they take that to mean the guy's right. They can't see past that. That to me is kind of strange that so many people went down that path, because I don't think the movie supports him at all.
No, I don't think it does. I think they make him sympathetic in a certain sense, but not necessarily right or not evil. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like, there's things he does that are horrible, horrible things, but because he shows an inch of remorse about it, like, spoilers, the big thing with Gamora, right?
Right.
Because he shows just an ounce of remorse over that, suddenly, like, I mean, it's the classic thing about where it's actually kind of, I think for a lot of people, it's more fun to root for the bad guy, right? And I think people generally take that mentality and then they will latch on to any like piece of breadcrumb that is given to them and just go a million miles for that. You heard the same thing with like the Joker, right? From The Dark Knight.
Absolutely.
In a certain sense, Killmonger from Black Panther.
See, I understand rooting for the bad guy more so when the bad guy is just completely evil, right?
Right.
Like, it's fun to root for Darth Vader because until pretty much the end of the Return of the Jedi, he is just like a big guy in a scary mask who has no personality except that he's evil and goes around whacking things with his lightsaber, right? That's fun. The people who root for a character like Thanos, for me, there isn't even any fun in that. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, I think this is just a state that we are in right now when it comes to pop culture, where you can't ever just like something for superficial reasons. Like it's the same sort of thing where back in the day, you could like a Hannibal Lecter because, oh man, that guy's creepy as fuck, right? And you'd be like that. Nowadays, though, it's, well, yeah, Hannibal Lecter's cool. And now I'm going to give you my 10-page thesis about why he was actually the right person and more people should be eating each other. It's really a statement on the environment. That's what Silence of the Lambs is. You know,
I think that's definitely a part of it. The need to over-intellectualize to demonstrate why you like something. But I think there is a genuine also a genuine problem at the moment with people who actually aren't equipped to hear an argument phrased well in a medium they're engrossed in and not come away with the idea that you're supposed to agree with it or not supposed to agree with it. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Time Best Secret says like a font. Yeah.
No, I
shut up.
No, I didn't side with Thanos any more this time than I did last time. If anything, I think his arguments actually ring even less true this time. Like, what I used to hate with when this movie came out was all the people saying, well, you know, Thanos' plot doesn't actually make any sense because he could use the Infinity Gauntlet to do all kinds of different things that would solve the... And you're like, oh, really? The genocidal maniac's plot doesn't make sense? Like, unlike all those other real-world genocidal madmen who wanted to kill hundreds of millions of people, whose plots and logic and reasoning did make lots of sense.
You know, one of my favorite things about Thanos is, and it's not even because of him, but he brought about one of the funniest like memes I've ever seen, right? And I don't know if it's not even like a meme, right? It's because like there's different like memes are like the picture or something like that. This is I have to admit, I chuckled pretty hard when I first saw this. But it's the bit at the end of Age of Ultron. The after credit scene where the door opens, he walks in, grabs the gauntlet, and says, "Fine, I'll do it myself."
Right.
So the meme just says at the top says, when the girlfriend doesn't want to have sex tonight, and then plays that clip of him walking in, grabbing the gauntlet, looking at his hand, and going, "Fine, I'll do it myself." Like that. I legit had a hard time watching Infinity War in the theater because that kept on coming up in my head. Just like the idea of like one of the, what are they, the Black Order, whatever they called, his henchmen.
I think they just call themselves the Children of Thanos in this one.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, this is one of the children of Thanos walking in. Lord Thanos goes, oh God, I'm sorry. Close the door. Close the door. And afterwards, they have that awkward silence, you know, where it's like, so was it worth it? It cost me everything.
The real sad thing is though when he tries it after uniting all the Infinity Stones and takes off half his leg.
No.
So one thing I did,
that story gets out across the galaxy, and he's no longer known as, you know, Thanos the Mad Titan. He just Thanos the Mad Moil. Just
Thanos with the little dick.
Half dick Thanos. Here he comes.
Stop calling me that. Family.
Thanos the stubby Titan.
I would have loved it if it got to the end and he'd have just gone, I'm going to remove half of the population of the universe, but I'll do it mercifully, without prejudice, without suffering. He just clicks his fingers and everyone's just suddenly halved right down the middle. Ah!
Oh, no.
Just falls over and dies. Oh, that's not what I meant to do.
You have to be very specific with this thing.
Just that's going over and he's just looking at like C++ code. You're consulting like Stack Overflow, like, okay, well, so it looks like the mistake I made here is when I said half, I accidentally put the wrong section in brackets, so it ended up referring to line 36. Hold on, this is going to take a little while.
He's sitting there with a lawyer going over what he said, like, no, see, here's your problem right here. This language is sort of vague, so, you know, if you use this in the court of law, they're not going to really know what you're asking for. So how I would write it is like has like a 2,500 page like legal document. Like, okay, I, Thanos the Mad Titan, being of sort of sound mind and body, do hereby decree that half the population, as in numbers of a whole, will be reduced by half. Not their bodies per se, but
what did it cost? Oh, like $50 an hour.
Call me the villain. These guys are fucking bloodsuckers. Goddamn ridiculous. Like, Mr. Thanos, my bill. You should have went for the head.
He just flicks his fingers. I'll just reduce that by half. It just gets longer. That's not gonna work.
Yeah, if you read subsection C of the 12th page, you can clearly see that I've had listed that Any attempt to reduce the bill by means of Infinity Gem and or intimidation shall actually increase the fee by half. Damn it.
So one thing I did think about on this...
I have the 7th Infinity Stone. Litigation. Just the litigation stone.
And that's also guarded on a mountain by the Red Skull, but there's like, so how do we retrieve the stone? I'm fucked if I know. Just
you
starts
have
getting
to
out.
pass the bar. No.
He starts getting out all these huge leather-bound volumes. Well, if you start on section 3, sub-article 12, the process is really quite simple, but it will take 6 to 8 weeks after you've filed a claim.
It's just Thanos and Captain America at the same table staring at each other, both furiously going through legal documents, trying to like who can do it faster.
He
like
just goes up to the edge and throws Gamora in, and the Red Skull's like, "That's not going to work here." Well, shit.
That's not going to work twice.
But you have left yourself open to a hefty lawsuit. Damn it.
Gamora from the pit. I'm suing. On what grounds? Subsection D of the...
I'll tell you later. There's a guy explaining this to me as I fall.
I wish I would have died.
So I did pick up on something this time that I think is going to be in the next movie.
Yeah.
And it's from the little girl Gamora inside the Soul Stone at the end.
Mm-hmm.
She seems actually kind of pissed off when she asks him what it costs. I think she's gonna fill the role of like the Lady Death type figure.
You think so?
Yeah.
I get the impression that is just straight up Gamora.
I agree. I agree. I think he's brought Gamora back as a child, and he's because he has the power to do it, you know.
Right.
And he's gonna try and be like a good parent, you know, inside the Soul Stone. But I think the way in which in the Infinity Gauntlet comic, you know, he wins over Death, and that she basically won't give him the time of day. I think we're gonna see child Gamora fill that role. You know, the ever-judging figure.
You know my favorite thing? No, you're right. She probably will be all of Avengers 4. She will probably be hovering around in the background going, is that such a good idea?
Exactly like that. Is that such a good idea?
Is this what you're going to do? Okay.
You're a real genius, Papa Thanos.
Well played, Mad Titan.
Pop Quiz, hotshot.
You know, no one would make this a lot easier if you hadn't halved your army by half.
You're such a good dad. She's just running around balancing that knife. Look, I balanced the knife. See?
just in the background, holding 2 rocks in her hand. Ooh, I'm Thanos. I balance things. Whoopity-doo.
Look at my big chair.
Tapes an avocado to her chin. I'm Thanos. Look at me.
Oh, look. Nebula didn't come home for Thanksgiving again. What a surprise.
Gee, I thought she loved you.
You're not my real dad. You killed him.
If everything's supposed to be balanced, why do I only have one parent? You said Death was going to be my stepmom. How'd that work out for you?
It starts even getting really petty, like, oh, you making breakfast? Toast a little burnt. Can you do anything right? Do anything right? Oh, Thanos likes balance, but he's got 2 slices of toast and 3 pieces of bacon.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch can be part of a well-balanced breakfast, but apparently you can't. That's what I want to see, is like all the Avengers getting ready. Like, we're gonna storm, we're gonna storm his castle, we're gonna take him over, we're gonna get our friends back, and he just comes through the front door like, fuck it, I'm putting it back to normal, okay?
Just take
I'm done. Just take this annoying little twerp away from me. God damn it.
Oh, someone caved. What a surprise.
Can't get his emotions in check.
But I want to talk exactly like that the whole movie.
Oh god. You don't know what my favorite thing though is about Thanos, like from the comics. He's the original incel, you know?
Death doesn't love me. Why?
I'm gonna kill half the universe to make her like me. I never asked for that. Oh, she friend zoned me.
Thanos as a character, they put him in a lot prior to Infinity Gauntlet, but I think people don't realize like he wasn't that interesting prior to Infinity Gauntlet.
No.
Like, and that was in like the 90s, right? That's a pretty late comic.
No, that happened in 80s, didn't it? The original Infinity.
No, I think Infinity Gauntlet's 1990.
Well, because there was Infinity Gauntlet, and then there was an Infinity War.
Yeah, that's the second one.
Yeah.
They knew that Infinity Gauntlet wouldn't be like a great name for the first movie.
Right.
Like that, people don't know this because not everybody is nerdy and into comics and stuff, but they're not even called the Infinity Stones in the comics. Well, they are now. Because that's how this works. And prior to that, they were actually all called the Soul Gems, but then they called one of them Soul, and eventually halfway through the story they realized, if they're all the Soul Gems, why is one of them only the Soul Gem? So then they were like, halfway through the story, Thanos just goes, also known as the Infinity Gems, and then they just call them that from then on. That's how they get out of that.
It's very much a case of it's very much a case of oh god, why can't I not think of her name? Like the Supremes. Yeah, it's like Diana Ross and the Supremes, you know, it's the Soul Gem and the Soul Gems. Just yeah. No, that is the Soul Gem. Just like I'm gonna use the Soul Gem. Reflections of the way life used to be. Well, it does have soul. Just right. No. What's up?
Apparently they lost my audio. Sorry guys, we are back. How long ago did my voice go missing? Apparently my audio disappeared. Can you still hear me, John?
At one point your quality definitely went down on my end. I didn't
tell you what that is. But my mic came out and then Discord switched to the other mic automatically, but obviously it didn't on the thing.
Oh, okay.
Tyler basically says now John is all quiet. Okay, I can boost John up a little bit. But that's because Owen is talking, I guess. I'm done trying to balance audio for you guys.
Jonathan talk.
Tyler basically, we got you back. Got you back for good.
God damn it, now I can't help but think of after Thanos gets the Soul Stone, the red skull is just like, will anything stop you on your path to this grim future? Ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no mountain. It's the wrong Soul Stone.
The Red Skull says that he too once sought the Infinity Stones, but then when he got there, he found that he couldn't claim them. Is that because he just hadn't brought his own Gamora? Do you know what I mean? Like, he just hadn't brought anything he loved with him.
But like, what did the Red Skull love? Like what would he have shown up with? Like Adolf Hitler?
Opera. Well, he didn't like Hitler that much.
Yeah.
He wasn't much of it. Like, he spent most of that movie trying to, like, take over from Hitler. My favorite bit in the Captain America movie is when he's given the tour of the Hydra facilities,
Right.
From those inspectors from the Reich who are coming to see. And he goes to the weapons room and he says, "This weapon will destroy all major threats to Hydra in the map." And that guy's just looking around, just the inspector, and he just looks at the map of cities, and then he just goes, "Berlin is on this map!" It always makes me laugh, like, oh, uh-oh.
It's like, oh, shit.
It's just a picture of him. I will kill this man next. What? Red Skull?
And all major threats to Hydra are displayed upon this wall. And it's just a full wall-sized mural of that one guy.
It's just, there's no photos. It just says, "You." What? You as in you, Brenna? No. You, like Y-O-U. You. Like the sheep?
You? No, I mean, that's not how you spell that. It's... You is E-W-E. Kill him! Why are you waiting? Kill him!
Why are you writing that in English? We're all German. I don't know why I suggested the sheep thing. Are you English, Red Skull?
Why are we speaking English right now? I'm all very confused.
As those guys died, I really wish they'd have said, "No, who would have thought a man named the Red Skull was untrustworthy?"
Clearly, there should have been an indicator.
They did pay that off. I think the only reason he was in there was because in that movie, when he picks up the Tesseract, it does sort of bifrost him away into space. So the idea that they were just like, well, who haven't we seen in a while that we could just put in here? Oh no, Red Skull. All right, Red Skull it is.
Well, okay. And to me, I thought that was kind of a sort of thing.
It's one of those things where, like, I don't care enough that it affected the movie for me, but no part of me was like, "Ooh, it's the Red Skull." Yeah.
Well, like, what kind of annoys me is that the effect where he gets, bifrosted away is really ambiguous, right? Because it could also very well have been like, no, it just vaporized him.
Well, you do see space opening up. Like, so what I will say is, I was under the impression that he had been teleported away before I saw Infinity War. Like, that was my read on that viewing. But I do see how you could have seen it and thought he'd been killed. As well.
You did not retract that soon enough, Sinister Minister. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on EWE.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
Shame this man.
What is it they say in Babe? Bah-ram you. Bah-ram you.
Bah-ram you. Which I never put together that it was, ram, you, bah. You know,
you just thought it was like an actual ancient incantation.
I did
walking up to strangers in the street trying to get them to do your bidding. Ram you.
I'm not a sheep.
Maybe it only works for pigs. So yeah, Infinity War is pretty good.
Yeah.
I think one of the things on second viewing, one of the things I found the most effective about it was that there are all kinds of characters that aren't significant players in this movie, but they give them very, very, very short scenes in which they do very significant things, so you don't feel like they're wasted. Like Groot becoming the handle for the new hammer.
Right.
And things like that. And I liked it. I think it held up pretty well. I wouldn't like it to be his main suit, so I'm glad it's not, but I think that Iron Spider suit was just the right move for this movie.
Yeah. Cool. I agree. I still think that there's two jokes in that movie that I think are absolutely perfect, because I think there's a lot of jokes in there that you can kind of just you know,
yeah, they're in there.
Like
they don't make you laugh, but you're like, all right, they're just the Marvel tone.
Yeah, like the bit where, you know, no one tells Bruce Banner that he's not supposed to bow. You know, like that's funny, but it's like, whatever.
I wonder if you're gonna have the same joke as me, because there's one joke I think is the best joke in the movie. But
there are two jokes, to me, that are the best. One is Thor and I can never remember his name. Peter Dinklage's character. And it's like, we go, you're about to take the full brunt of a star. It'll kill you. And then Thor responds like, only if I die.
Yeah. He's like, yeah.
That's what killing you means. The
other such one, a Thor thing to say.
Yeah. It was a Thor subject.
You're awful.
But the other one, and it's a really small joke, but for some reason it really got me in theater. But it's
see you later, Blash. Thanks for watching.
Yep. See you later, Blash. But it's the end. It's the end fight. You know, everything's going on, and Groot and Rocket and Thor show up. And Groot goes, I am Groot. And Steve Rogers is like, I am Steve Rogers.
I like that.
That really made me laugh.
My favorite joke's actually pretty early on. And it's when it's what I like about it is I'll say what I like about it afterwards, but it's when Peter Parker arrives and he says to Iron Man, so what are we doing? And he goes, these guys are from space, they're trying to steal a necklace from a wizard. What I like about it is, I mean, it's not even a joke, it is exactly what's happening.
Right.
But we've reached a point so ridiculous and so absurd without knowing it that it's really funny.
I will say also appreciated hi, I'm Peter Parker. Stephen Strange. Oh, we're using fake names. Got it. I like that. I will say another bit. It didn't make me outwardly laugh, but I thought it was a pretty funny visual joke. Was once again in the final fight, and it's Rocket and Bucky. And Bucky picks up Rocket and dual wields him with another gun.
That also leads into one of my favorite Rocket moments when he says, how much for the gun? And he says, I'm not selling the gun. How much for the arm? And Bucky's like, it's not for sale. And then as he runs off, Rocket goes, I'm going to get that arm. Because I don't know why, but this running gag of Rocket basically wanting everyone's prosthetic body parts just because he finds it funny is funny.
Yeah.
I do also love the response of the Guardians of the Galaxy when they see Thor, and they're all talking about how much of a real man he is.
How much what?
How much of a real man he is compared to Quill.
Yeah. I'll be right back. Want to solo stream for a bit?
Oh yeah, I will solo stream for a bit. So yeah, I've that was me watching Infinity War again, which has just come out on Blu-ray here. We've been talking about that for a little bit. I have something else to talk about in a moment with John, but I might let him pick a topic for a little bit. But yeah, on the subject of Infinity War, before we, I suppose, move on from that, I will say, this time around, I felt like I could see where they were going with the next part a lot more, and I feel like I have more. I don't want to say more theories this time, but I feel like it's kind of easier to predict. I think what we're gonna see a little bit more. I'm not gonna get too much into it, but I would really recommend people. If you haven't already seen Infinity War, check it out. And if you saw it the first time and you were a little cool on it, maybe watch it again knowing where it's going. Because I remember a lot of people saying, and I've had a lot of people saying to me that they didn't like Infinity War because they felt like it didn't have an ending. And I still kind of don't agree with that. I think that movie has a pretty solid ending, actually. It just isn't a happy one, you know? And we know they're going to go and pick up something else with it and carry on, but it's an ongoing series, so of course they will. But yeah, no, I liked Infinity War the second time around, and I hope that the next one is as good. But then, you know, Marvel, they've got to start getting it wrong eventually. They're gonna fail. I mean, they've made some movies I haven't liked as much as other movies, but all their big ones I think have mostly been you know,
I'm back.
Welcome back. I was just saying, I think I'm hoping the next Infinity War Part 2 that isn't going to be called that anymore is as good, and that I generally trust Marvel to get it right because they've had a good track record, but they have to fluff one eventually, right?
Well, I mean, I would say Age of Ultron.
Oh, I wouldn't. Like, I don't think Age of Ultron's a great. I don't think it's as good as the first Avengers, but I don't think it's a. I wouldn't call it a failure of a movie. You know what I mean?
Well, Thor: Dark World.
Maybe this is me moving the goalposts, but I feel like that's just another movie in the Marvel series. You know what I mean?
Right.
But for me, like I don't like the Incredible Hulk, but it is just one of their origin movies. You know?
Right.
I really don't like that movie actually, and we were talking when we watched Infinity War about how much worse this whole thing would be if Ed Norton was still the Hulk. Like, it wouldn't be enjoyable, would it?
Well, not his bits.
Like, could you imagine him trying to do any of the stuff the Hulk has to do in Ragnarok and it being likable?
Oh God. Yeah, no, Ruffalo is the better Hulk. Like,
absolutely.
And
I still say he takes much more. I mean, I don't think he takes from anybody. I think he just does his own Hulk. But the Eric Bana Hulk movie is much closer to him than the actual MCU Hulk movie. Like that the Eric Bana Hulk movie would fit better with everything we've got since than the Ed Norton one would. But then I like the Eric Bana Hulk movie. I actually think the villain in that's great.
I don't remember so much about that movie. Like, I just.
Well, there's some dumb stuff. The villain has some CGI dogs that he hulks up. There's like a fight with a big CGI poodle. That's terrible. But at the end, the villain, if you don't remember the movie, the villain is his dad, his real dad, because he's been put up for adoption. It's actually really clever. His name's Bruce Banner, but his adopted name is David. So they get like the David from the TV series and the Bruce in there, you know, which is neat.
Right.
But or it's the other way around. I don't remember which, but you know they get both names in there.
Right.
But he was adopted because his dad experimented on himself in the 60s, and then experimented on his son, and then he basically tries to kill his son because he basically knows what he's gonna become.
Great.
And so essentially the villain is his biological father who's tracked him down, and all his years in prison have basically turned him into a bit of a sort of a religious zealot, and what he really wants to do is kind of unlock the Hulk and harness the power for himself, right? And they do interesting things that, like, they basically establish that what the accident that made the Hulk wouldn't make anybody the Hulk. It just made him it because he'd already been worked on, basically, which is an interesting take on it. But at the end, and his dad's played by, oh man, who is it? I forget. I'll look up who it is. But at the end, his dad basically tries to perform the same experiment to give himself these Hulk powers, but it doesn't work. And what he actually does is gives himself the power to absorb. Oh, it's Nick Nolte. There we go. That's the guy who plays his dad.
Gotcha.
He gives himself the power to become the materials around him.
Oh, okay.
And what follows is one of the most amazing sequences in kind of early CGI I've seen in a long time, where there's a great sequence where he's just walking out of the machine after trying to give himself his powers, puts his hand on a steel bar that's painted blue, and his hand changes to blue steel, and then starts to merge through the bar, and he has to, like, pull it out. And they do quite a lot with that before the final fight, which sort of sucks, but it's really good. I think the big mistake with the Hulk was casting Ang Lee to direct it, really. Well, hiring Ang Lee to direct. Because he'd done Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but that was the action movie he'd wanted to make for his entire career. But he'd spent his entire career making, like, character dramas, you know?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, while being an action movie, is a character drama, though.
Right.
Like,
and he wasn't necessarily... See, I like that movie. So for me, he's the right person. But he didn't make the Hulk movie anybody wanted to see.
Right. It's what happens when you do the hiring the trendy choice, you know?
Right.
Regardless of whether or not the person fits or not.
Yeah, and also I think one of the big issues is that the CGI just wasn't ready to do a character that has to be predominantly CGI like that too.
And like I keep on hearing all these rumors about a Star Trek movie done by Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, I hate that.
That nothing about that sounds good.
Right. I mean, even leaning into a Star Trek movie directed by J.J. Abrams has had its problems, because you're taking a fairly trendy director who's known for making movies that are about sort of slightly human dramas, but like J.J. Abrams, I don't mind his films, but he's the perfect director for Star Wars, right? Which is about, you know, human characters, family drama, confrontational scenes with heightened emotional moments between characters in a kind of a soap opera thing. It's actually good for people who come from TV, right?
Right.
He's terrible for Star Trek, because Star Trek is, I would say Star Trek is the most successful show on TV that is, at its core, real science fiction for science fiction people. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Because sci-fi on TV isn't often really sci-fi in the hard sci-fi sense, you know? And movies. And so the difficulty was, I think you can see it in those J.J. Abrams movies, and the fact that he was reluctant to direct them in the first place because he didn't feel right for them. He's not comfortable taking Star Trek as seriously as the franchise usually takes itself, you know? Right.
Yeah. But you do get the opposite of that too, though, when it comes to Star Trek, like the Shatner directed ones.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing J.J. Abrams got really, really right was he recognized, in the first movie at least, he recognized that the core of the Star Trek show is Kirk, Spock, and McCoy as a trio of people with differing opinions, like...
Right, they're the counters to each other.
Right, because Captain Kirk is not, in the TV show at least, he's not the stereotype he has been remembered as. So the idea was, like, McCoy would bring in a really, really emotional theory, and Spock would bring in a really logical one, and then Kirk was like an impartial arbiter who would then reach a conclusion, you know?
Right.
That's his role. But Tarantino would be even worse, because the problem with Tarantino is he's overtly cynical, I think, in his perspective. And I wouldn't want to watch a Star Trek show like that at all.
And there's something to be said about a certain level of.
Oh, hello to Og in the chat, by the way, who says Ragnarok is one of the better movies to feature the Hulk. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd
absolutely.
Say probably the strongest movie with the Hulk in. Except for maybe the first Avengers.
Well,
I know
me,
you
I'm
don't
not
care for
huge.
the first Avengers.
Yeah.
I quite like
it. But no, like my issue with Tarantino is, I think for some of these properties, you do need to have a certain level of nostalgia for them. But he has nostalgia for things on a very obsessive level.
Right.
And what I'm worried about him is that what you get with him is that he doesn't just want to make he doesn't want to make a Western, right? He doesn't want to make a grindhouse film, right? Or he wants to make the ones that came before it and then spice it up with his dialogue.
Right.
You know?
And what role would Tarantino's dialogue fulfill in Star Trek?
Exactly. Like, although I would not mind the Reservoir Dogs diner scene as done by
on the DS9 promenade.
Yeah, just
that'd be good.
Just Odo, Quark, and Cisco just sitting on.
Yeah,
just Quark's like, it's dick.
See, sometimes I think Star Trek has a really bad reputation for goofy dialogue because the Star Trek technobabble gets in the way a little bit, you know?
Right.
But there are some really, really great conversations in Deep Space Nine. Specifically the one about root beer, if you've ever seen that one. It's good. But, no, I agree. I think Tarantino... Well, the problem with Tarantino is... I think the problem with Star Trek in general, I say this as a Star Trek fan, is there aren't that many people these days who like Star Trek, I think, in filmmaking, who are kind of unabashedly happy saying, I kind of like Star Trek as it was, and there isn't really anything wrong with it. It just needs to be done well again, with respect.
Right.
Because we're in this position where we keep getting Star Trek made by people who don't really like Star Trek. Even Discovery's a little bit like that. Discovery has some interesting stuff, though. Discovery gets to interesting characters, which I like. There's a character in Discovery who is relatively unique among members of the Federation in that while humans evolved as omnivores and hunters, and a lot of the other characters and a lot of the other humanoid species have similar track records, he comes from a species that have evolved from prey, if you know what I mean. He evolved from a species that fundamentally were like their planet's rabbits, if you know what I mean. They were the feeble, the hunted, the hiding, the runaways. And so they spend a lot of time in Discovery about the fact that fundamentally his psychology is very different to most of the humanoid species because they survived on their planet to become the dominant form of life and the most intelligent, but never as the hunters.
Okay.
And so he has, for example, a highly developed sense of when danger is afoot, but he's also more cautious than most officers. And they play with a lot of interesting things about how he finds value and success is with a career in Starfleet, despite the fact that what are usually thought of among humanoid species as successful traits aren't inherent to his species, or even valued in the same way. And stuff like that, to me, is fascinating. There's nothing like that in the Abrams movies, ever.
No. And there certainly won't be something like that in Tarantino.
No, in Tarantino's movies, that guy would be the first one to get shot by the captain.
He's the one who gets his antenna cut off, you know?
Right.
Yeah. I know. But yeah, just a quick note, everyone. If you are enjoying watching this over here on YouTube, we also have a Twitch channel, which we are also restreaming to. So if you prefer Twitch over YouTube, we do have one. The channel name is Tab Twitchy.
Yeah.
Spelled just how you think it is.
It's very tap twitchy.
So I managed to watch a film.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Was it
I did
not a movie?
God damn it. Yes, a movie.
Well, I was told all my life that Americans said movies, not films. So for your benefit, I've been adjusting to saying movie.
And they're interchangeable over here.
Otherwise, I figured you wouldn't know what I was talking about. You'd have been like, "What? A
film? Like the
film?
The things we put over our TV dinners?"
And then I'd have been like, "What? Wait, TV dinners? Are you talking about a ready meal?"
You're eating your brownie in your aluminium tin.
They did try to launch TV dinners over here, but they didn't get good reception. Ha
God. So yeah, saw a movie.
Oh yeah, was it good?
It was okay. I finally saw Mission Impossible. Oh God, which one is it?
Rogue Nation.
Rogue Nation.
That's
yes.
the one you told me you'd saw, not to break down the illusion that this is a fully free-flowing conversation. So, question, did you see this because you knew I'd just seen it?
Did I see what?
Did you see this because you knew I just watched it?
No, I was sitting at home. I had the night to myself, and I decided I really want to see a movie. And when I went on PlayStation, because I was going I'll see if there's any deals going on. Rent a movie for really cheap or something like that. They're already advertising Fallout, pre-ordering Fallout. Mission Impossible Fallout, for those who don't know. And so I was like, oh, Mission Impossible, yeah, that sounds good. I never saw Rogue Nation, so that's why that came about. But I liked the Mission Impossible movies, and in fact, I liked all of them except for 2. I did not like 2.
Well, as you guys know, I've recently, I would say rewatched. I've recently done a marathon of them all except Fallout. I'd seen 1, 2, and 3 before, and I will say they were all better than I expected going in, from my memory and from my expectations, except Rogue Nation. Which doesn't mean I didn't like it, it's just that I'd remembered 1 as being sort of confusing and bad, and it was actually good, and I'd remembered 2 as being unwatchably bad, and it wasn't that bad. 3, I'd remembered I'd seen it once and fallen asleep during it, but actually I didn't mind that either. And then I really, really liked Ghost Protocol, and my problem with Rogue Nation is not that I thought it was a bad film, but that I enjoyed Ghost Protocol so much, I think I expected too much of it going in.
Right.
Because I will say I am very prone to that. I think that's why I really don't like Man of Steel, but I find Batman vs Superman fonder. I went in with very different expectations to both those movies, you know?
Right.
But now tell me, did you like Rogue Nation?
Okay, so I kept on going back and forth with it. I will say by the end of it, I can honestly say I had fun watching that movie. There were some bits to that movie that made me go, oh yeah, cool, but then there were some parts that were kind of silly. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It's just silly.
I'll say I would say each of the Mission Impossible movies has what you would call a big action set piece, and they're often quite stretching the suspension of disbelief. And I will say, and usually that's okay. And I will say that with this movie, the big action set piece just made me go, really? Okay.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm gonna break it down by the different set pieces, okay? Because that's what that movie is. That's what these movies are.
For sure.
Now, here's the thing. I think they're actually pretty serviceable. Now, that's a kind of a harsh word too. I think they're actually fairly decent spy movies, right?
No, I'd agree.
And spy movies in the sense of the James Bond style spy movie, you know, where it's...
I think so. I think Mission Impossible 1 is the closest it came to having a more involved plot than that, but they just didn't really go down that road as a series.
Right. Now, okay, there's some people who would say, like, oh, well, you know, a spy movie is like Tinker Tailor Soldier, blah, 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 candlestick maker.
The next one is literally spy.
Yeah, okay. But like, I feel like those are kind of different movies, right?
Oh, sure. I call those spy thrillers. If anything.
Sure.
Espionage thrillers.
Yeah.
Maybe. You know what I mean?
SB dramas.
Well, they are different, because like John le Carre, who wrote most of those, or was the inspiration for most of those, was a very different author to Ian Fleming. You know what I mean?
Right.
Ian Fleming wrote pulpy spy action books.
And like Mission Impossible was a series from the 70s, I want to say.
Yeah.
And it was kind of pulpy. It was, it was, you know, the thread of the week, sort of.
I would say it was more in the Starsky and Hutch A-Team mold than it was in the, I don't know, the Manchurian Candidate.
Right. So in that sense, I think Mission Impossible and all of them are fairly good about that. And I actually really like the setup for Rogue Nation, right? Because one of the heralds for me of a good spy film is interaction with the other intelligence agencies, right? I am a sucker for that. You know, when there's the British spy and the American spy, or the guy from the CIA and the guy from the IMF, and then you know, an ex-KGB guy shows up, or you know, Mossad. You know, I love it when you get that international flair. I
particularly like it in Bond movies, old Bond movies, when it's Russia, but the villain's not Russian. And you've got kind of Bond working with the Soviets, but not officially working with the Soviets. They're both trying to take down the same organization. You know what I mean? I was like that kind of one. When the Russians aren't really the villains, they just don't want to work with the Allies because they don't want to.
1 second. Jeez, Beth. Tiny Beth's secret. She goes, yeah, he did it because you did it, Owen. He says it's because of advertising, but you are his puppet master. There is one other way. Fucking stupid. Like, whoa!
I believe that last message was about the, actually about Rogue Nation. Came in around that time.
Okay. And hello, Chicken Lisa. Welcome back.
So did you like the whole thing of an organization that operates a bit like the IMF, but bad?
Yeah, I loved that idea. That I really, really enjoyed. And I specifically love it how Simon Pegg describes it. His character describes it. When they finally tell him exactly what it is, where it's like, oh, it's all these ex-intelligence agents who have been presumed dead, they've gone into hiding, and they formed their own organization. He explicitly says what everyone in the fucking audience is thinking. Right? He goes, oh, they're the anti-IMF.
Right.
And that's beautiful. I love that.
They also set it up with a really great way. Like, it's a legitimately good moment at the beginning of that movie when you see him sit down for the classic Mission Impossible briefing. And then they just go, oh, by the way, we're the bad guys, and lock him in. And they do it really cleverly too, where it sounds like a normal briefing, but they start out with like by interjecting like one sentence,
And you can tell Ethan picks up on it right away. He's like, what?
It's a good movie, that bit.
Yeah, I really like that setup. And although I will say, I don't think it has a good payoff.
No. In fact, I would say they actually sort of forget about the fact that they're the evil IMF almost immediately. And then it just becomes almost about that one guy from that point on.
Exactly. Like they could have actually left out the entire syndicate bit, and if it was just that one guy operating on his own, the movie doesn't change.
Yeah. And I think it gets much less good when you start dealing with it in that framework. It does have a joke I really liked though, which is like the first movie, the premise of this film is actually that the IMF has been disbanded, and the main intelligence operatives in the CIA believe that Ethan is a bad guy, that he's working for the villains.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes rogue and he goes in hiding and he starts setting about his own operations to bring down the syndicate. And the leader of the CIA, the head of the CIA, basically says, "We'll have him by the end of the week." And then it cuts to a caption that says, 6 months later?
Yeah.
And I just that was just very funny.
Yeah, no, like, okay, so I want to break it down kind of by the set pieces.
Go for it.
Because they are what the film is.
There is one that is very silly that I still actually really like.
Okay. The first big one to me was the opera house.
And I love that sequence.
You see, that I loved it and hated it at the same time. All right. So the premise of this thing, if you haven't seen it, is Ethan and Benji have figured out that this guy that they're tracking will be at this opera house. And then they're also surprised to find out that the Austrian chancellor is present. So they figured out that, okay, they're going to assassinate this guy. We need to find the assassin. What turns out, though, is that there's actually 3 assassins. All 3 of which aren't aware that the other ones are there. So
one is because one's there to make sure the other one does their job.
Right. Well, I guess two are aware, one isn't. So
and
what you get, though,
Ethan and Benji are there.
Right. So what you get, the big culmination is you have Ethan and Benji trying to stop these assassins, but since there's only 2 of them and there's 3 assassins, they can only go up for 2. But the one assassin who isn't aware that the other 2 assassins are there is now in a position where either she takes out her target or she takes out one of these, it's a weird cat and mouse web thing that it plays out a lot better than I'm describing it.
It's actually one of the strongest bits of the movie. That character, who she's working for, and ultimately the various different reasons people are working against other people, is one of the best parts. One of the strongest parts, I would say.
Yeah, I would say. What I kind of hate about this scene, though, were... So all 3 of these assassins sneak in to the opera house with their weapons, all disguised in the same way, which is they're all instruments that can be pulled apart and like maneuvered around to make a rifle.
I quite like that.
So like by the end you have one guy with a bassoon that's also a rifle. She's like with a flute that's also a rifle. And
it's so dumb, but I really enjoyed it.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
It really is, but I think the other dumb things in this movie bothered me more, because I think that one was supposed to be explicitly sort of funny. Whereas there's one later on that is not funny, and is dumb.
So my thought behind it was, this is where I kind of wavered on the film. Like, I don't mind some campiness, I don't mind some of that sort of stuff, but it felt so out of place in the film to me. Like, never in this film did it feel like they got the balance right, or they even kind of knew what sort of movie they're going for.
Well, this kind of gets into one of my problems with this movie, because I do think this film has a problem with suspension of disbelief, and I do think it has a problem with consistent plotting and pacing over the course of the movie. Like, I really got bored by the end of it. But one of the big issues I have with this film is it can't actually decide if Ethan is the ultimately trained perfect superhuman who has the reflexes to perform everything that's ever dealt with him, or if he's more of a sort of a Indiana Jones gets the crap beaten out of him and drops things at hilarious moments character. Because there's a bit in this movie, I'm going to get ahead to it. I don't care. I cannot avoid talking about the diving sequence, right?
Sure.
The entire integrity of that sequence relies on Ethan being the superhuman character who gets everything right all the time. And yet, the scene plays out like a comedy. Do you know what I mean?
Were you talking about the power plant thing?
No, I'm talking about the dive into the server room, the submerged server room.
Yeah, okay, at the power plant, yeah.
Oh, I hate that sequence. I was so bored and also annoyed.
Yeah, I mean, so this is kind of what my feelings are with the movie. It's actually a really wonderfully shot film.
Yes, it looks great.
It looks great, and it also sounds great. I don't know if you picked up on it or not, but there's some really great use of like diametric sound and ambience. Like, for instance, at the opera house, the entire thing is scored with the opera that's playing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's great. It sounds great. It's like this super over the top operatic piece. With these assassins all going after each other. Like, it's pretty kind of cool, except for the weird flute pistol thing. There's a big motorcycle chase in it that it has no music. There's no music in that bit. It's all just the sound of the engines. And it's really cool. It really sounds cool.
Yeah.
I liked the server room thing because it's submerged in water, and so every sound is actually muffled like it's underwater, right? To really, I'm with Owen. The scene is actually fucking ridiculous. It's silly, right? But once you get past that, it's actually filmed very well.
Yeah. Well, and you can actually tell that Tom Cruise is actually underwater as well. Properly in that scene. Very often they don't do underwater like that. Very often they'll do underwater in very small quantities of water, all filmed through water in a way. So you'll see people submerged in bits that you need to be, and then there's a lot of fakes to it. But you can tell he's actually in a tank.
Yeah.
Quite deep in the water in that. And you got to give him credit for that, because it's not.
Well, yeah, I give the film credit all over the place, because where most films would kind of cop out and do a CG thing, they have consistently stuck in the Mission Impossible franchise with keeping it as practical as possible. There are bits.
I actually think that's partly why the effect is so jarring, because it looks so real, but what's happening is fundamentally so fake and silly.
Yeah.
I think the reason we ended up in that sequence is they always feel the need to up the stakes from the previous movie. So this whole sequence with this submerged, this underwater tank is it is a breaking into a computer, essentially. And so I think they always want in their minds, okay, how can we do this better than we did it in the first movie? But it doesn't have like an ounce of the tension of that like suspended hack from the first one,
Right. And they also do this thing where whether they meant to or not, there is a thing in that sequence. I thing. There is a presence in that scene that you very well know is going to play a factor, and it's the British. What's her name?
The actress?
Yeah.
Oh, she was the same actress from The Greatest Showman, but I've forgotten her name.
Yeah, I forgot too. She's
not actually English, the actress.
She's not?
No.
Is she German? I feel like she's German.
But she plays the British agent.
Yeah. She's there, right? And they set it up so that when Ethan jumps in, she stays out. Rebecca Ferguson. Okay.
She's Swedish.
Oh.
Her accent's fantastic, though.
It is well done. But she stays out of the pool. So you know at a certain point she's getting her ass in that pool. Right? There's no way around it. And in fact, when Ethan does lose oxygen and pass out, they give us a shot of her taking off her gear to jump into this pool.
In fact, perhaps we should set up what this scene is. So the basic premise is a character is going to try and break into a room using hacked credentials, but the room has really high-tech security. And what they do is they store biometric data on everyone who has clearance, and they store it in the server room. And the security, this is partly, I know the suspension of disbelief, part of the reason I don't like this scene is I can think of, just me with no expertise, 1,000,001 better ways to secure information than this. But the basic premise is that they store all the information on individual little data cards, basically.
Yep.
And those individual little data cards are held in a submerged tank at the bottom of like a quite lengthy tunnel of water. And when someone needs to access the information, they send a signal down to a robot arm in the tank that manually picks the each individual card and inserts it into the computer. Am I right with that? So there's no way to hack in. The only way to do it is to go down and replace the person whose identity they're going to steal. Replace his biometric data card with a new one that they then will but they're also I don't know why, like I must have missed this, but they can't do it like 3 weeks in advance. They have to do it so it's timed at the precise moment that Benji walks through the door.
Right. That was unclear to me as well, like why that has to happen at the same time.
I mean, I know why it has to happen at the same time in the movie, like tension, but within the logic of the world, it doesn't seem to make sense. Also, something really dumb happens, which is when Ethan gets down there and changes the cards, swaps them out, he drops them, and then has to go for a little swim for them, and then doesn't actually know if he's got them back in the right way. By the way, no one can actually see those cards, so they could have just written on it, like, this is the...
Yeah,
like
that was my first thought when I saw that. I'm like, why are they identical? Like, why did one have to look exactly like the other one? Couldn't they put like a little black mark on it or anything?
Or just like before they done it said, oh, and the server room has an optical sensor, so if they aren't identical, it'll trigger the alarms, you know? But they didn't say anything like that. Anyway.
I mean, maybe they did, but they cut it, you know?
Actually, that's a really good example of why I think the tone's all over the place. They wanted that whole thing of, oh, Ethan, what he does is he dives in. He's the only person capable of holding his breath long enough to get down there. Fit through this section, go through here, do this high-tech thing, put the card in at just the right time and time it out just in the right moment as Benji goes through the door. And at the same time, Ethan dropped the cards.
Well, they actually do kind of this fun thing with it where I think that is actually kind of a consistent theme through the movie is so much of the film is predicated on everyone else's opinion of Ethan.
That's true.
Right? That is actually a very consistent thing because there's a lot of moments throughout that film where people spend a decent amount of time theorizing about the nature of Ethan, right?
Right.
You know, in fact, another theme through it is this idea of gambling. Ethan is everything he's done is based on luck. They explicitly say that, like, he's gotten lucky many times. Eventually his luck's going to run out. He's a gambler. He's willing to gamble with the lives of thousands of people because he has a hunch or an idea. And in that sense, I think that the way the finale pays off works. But you have to be paying a lot of attention to everything that's being said in the film.
The finale is the highlight of the movie, actually.
I would agree.
And in fact, the ultimate resolution of what the Syndicate is redeems a lot of problems with that film, I think.
Yeah, that was actually my favorite bit of... Not my favorite. It was up there. So we're going to jump ahead now. Server room, stupid, silly, ridiculous. It was supposed to be the poster, you know?
Right.
That was and I think it failed miserably.
Well, the biggest problem with it is, on top of all that, it's not really that fun because the whole thing raises too many questions while you're watching it. You're just going, really?
What?
Okay.
Well, I mean, there's so many things about it too, where it's like, why are these arms consistently swinging? Like,
right, like if they only go into
what does that do? You know, like, because I get like those arms are supposed to be what's are pulling in and out the cards and stuff like that. I get that.
Did someone pull the fire alarm and everyone's leaving the building?
But yeah, it's like, why are they going right now? Like,
right.
Yeah, it was just, it was a high concept scenario that they did not either explain well enough or display well enough.
And has there ever been a sequence in a Mission Impossible movie where you're like, you know what? Nobody stores their data like this.
Right. You know, I mean, like, okay, so you look at Mission Impossible 1, right? The big set piece in that film is breaking into the Langley CIA to get the knock list, right? And they make it seem very complicated, right? Or it's like, okay, you know, they're a super pressurized floor and there's microphones everywhere and you can't go above certain decibels or the alarm goes off. You can't touch the floor or the alarms go off. You can't do blah, 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 blah. But it basically boils down to you have to be super quiet and you can't touch the ground.
Right.
Right.
And the thing is, even though I don't think the CIA guards their computers like that or ever did, all those things are individual security protocols that we know are used in the world in certain scenarios. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
They all exist as methods of security. Nobody stores data in an underwater hook prize machine. You know? Like, when they're trying to get the data cards out, is there a bit where the arm comes out, goes to grab, and then just lets go, and you end up with, like, a knockoff Pikachu instead? That's what I need to know. Oh, we lost John. You still there, John? We lost John during my awesome hook machine joke. So other than that, I mean, I'll are you back, John?
Okay. Yeah, I'm back. No, that was actually my computer hiccup there and froze for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
But yeah, nobody stores data like that.
No, it's ridiculous. It's also a problem that I feel later Pierce Brosnan James Bonds had, where
we lost John.
No, I'm here. I'm here. I'm just trying. No, I kind of had a brain fart, like how I wanted to describe this. It's trying to invent things that are supposed to exist in the real world, but are clearly just for the sake of having an obstacle for the hero.
Right.
You know.
Well, even like I know it's not exactly direct obstacle, but wasn't the last Pierce Brosnan one the one where a Korean man had managed to change his DNA to pretend to be a snooty Englishman for no reason?
Opposite. Or no, I thought it was the opposite way. No, you're right.
He'd chosen to be a Korean. He'd hidden himself as a North Korean.
No, you're right. It was the other way. But that's also one where the guy had like diamonds in his face.
Right, because the bomb had exploded and all the diamonds had shot off, right?
Right.
And they were like, we can't pick these out. And I was like, but you can see them. They're surface level.
Yeah. Like, he just wanted the bling.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't blame him.
Also has the car with the invisible paint.
No, it wasn't invisible paint. All right. How they described it was there was 1 million or so like tiny cameras on the surface level of the car that took in the images from the outside and then projected them outward.
And even just been like dumber, been, like faces and stuff like that. You know, like that scene with the stealth plane in Spider-Man: Homecoming, where it just projects like a giant Spider-Man walking along the walking along the base.
So yeah, but that's exactly what that sequence was. But you remove that sequence from the film, and what you get is actually a pretty good movie. The problem is that whole bit takes up so much time,
right? No,
that it is a detriment to the film. I think without it, it's amazing.
There's no kind of alternate sequence that you know you missing a beat now if you're bored through that whole sequence.
Right.
I like it. I actually even though I think they didn't play the whole syndicate thing as well as they could, I actually like the villain as a role, as a performance.
Yeah.
I think he's nice. And I like once again, I have to say, my highlight rewatching the Mission Impossible movies, and maybe this seems like a really low bar to set for it, but I still think it's kind of to their testament that they never forget the masks exist.
Right. And that plays into a really great moment in Rogue Nation. Because this is the really funny thing about Rogue Nation, right? It is an action film, but all the like other than the server room thing, just about everything else in that film is very subdued.
Yes. Well, that's why one of the things I was going to say is I would enjoy that movie more if they played it, if they'd gone into it more with the idea that it was more of a character piece Mission Impossible movie. Because at times it feels like one.
Like, yeah, so there's this bit right towards the end. It's almost the end, right? But it's the sort of the moment where all the information comes out, right? And they do it perfectly. And they do it even to the point where I was kind of fooled up until one right towards the end, right? So there's this bit, right? There's this the head of the MI6, of the British Intelligence Agency or whatever, and
no, they're called MI6. That's right.
Yeah, MI6, right?
Yeah, that's them.
Yeah. Okay. So he's there, and they make it very clear that he
stands for Mission Impossible 6. It doesn't.
That's Fallout.
It really doesn't, but that would be great, wouldn't it?
No. So they don't hide the fact that there's something up with the guy, right? But they play it more as he's not necessarily evil, but he's just the cold, unrelenting, get the job done for the sake of the nation guy.
Well,
right?
We've actually seen this guy before in a really good scene where he's actually dealing with the English agent, and he essentially explains to the audience that she's under so deep cover that until she has clearance to come home, she's essentially an outlaw.
Right.
Because there's only like 3 people who know that she's in cover at all. So we know that he's a bit mercenary about how he does his work.
Right. He
refuses to let her come in.
Right. And he basically tells her, like, oh, it'd be a shame if we kind of forgot who you were. More or less telling her, like, you get this done or we're going to never let you come home and let whatever authority finds you do whatever they want with you.
And what he wants to do, by the way, is allow Ethan to be murdered.
Pretty much, yeah.
To preserve her cover for no other reason.
Yeah. So yeah, he's an asshole, but not necessarily a bad guy. And then we get to the end, and they set up the situation where the CIA director, Benji, no, not Benji, the CIA director, Jeremy Renner's character, Brandt,
yeah,
what was his name? Brandt.
A bit of a downgrade in this movie, but still kind of steals the limelight a bit.
Yeah, I think that was somewhat to do with him as well. I remember when this movie was coming out, there was something about they knew going in that there's going to be filming complications with another movie he was part of.
Fair enough.
So I think they did that on purpose.
Well, his and what's his name, Baldwin's scenes are all fairly self-contained.
Right. In fact, except for a handful. I think there's maybe 2 scenes where
it's pretty
Tom
much
Cruise and him are actually on the same scene.
It's
right?
pretty much the opening and the finale, I think.
Yeah.
He was good as well, actually, Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, he's good, and I get the feeling as well that I think when we got to Ghost Protocol, I think everyone had the idea. I think even the producers we are going to eventually hand this franchise off to him because Tom Cruise can't keep making these movies forever.
Right.
That they're going to give it to.
But he will try.
Well, I think that was the idea. Is that they were going to do that just like they were going to do that with the Bourne films as well. Like at the time,
wasn't that actually Jeremy Renner as well?
Yes, exactly.
Bourne is one you shouldn't try and hand off, though.
No, God no.
Like when it's Mission Impossible and it's about an organization and the name Ethan Hunt isn't like in the title of the movie, you can do that.
Right.
Bourne doesn't quite work.
But Jeremy Renner was, when Ghost Protocol came out, was the hot ticket, right? He and I still think there is a bit of it floating around that he is, kind of being pegged as the next bankable action star. And I think he's proved himself well. But by time Rogue Nation rolls around, I think Tom Cruise has made it apparently clear that he has no intentions of giving up Mission Impossible.
Well, his performance in Ghost Protocol was very well received.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise's.
Yeah, absolutely.
That movie kind of because people, even though there wasn't that big a gap relatively, Ghost Protocol is kind of a reboot a little bit.
It is. It absolutely. I mean, it's when they give up the numbering, So it's Jeremy Renner's character, Alec Baldwin's character, and the head of the MI6, and then the Prime Minister, right? And so they're all in this room, and basically it's clever. It's very, very clever what they do. They use enough vague language to get the Prime Minister to basically explain that the syndicate was the British head of intelligence's brainchild. Like it was his idea to get this going. But the guy that he tapped to do it went rogue.
Right.
And became a nightmare. And everything that he's been doing this whole movie has been trying to just eliminate the syndicate and hide his involvement. And whatnot. What you find out, though, is the MI6 director in the scene is actually Ethan wearing the mask, right?
And it's actually quite a funny scene because there's a hint that he wasn't actually intending it to go that way. So when the Prime Minister's like, are you talking about the same syndicate you and I discussed on the phone? At first he's like, no, a different syndicate, I guess. Which is just funny.
Yeah, it's very cleverly written. And then the reveal is the real MI6 director shows up and, gets implicated in the whole thing and whatnot. But now Ethan has all the information that he needs to make a barter with Solomon Lane.
Yes. Because
that's the bad guy thing.
What I do really like is that the whole goal of the Syndicate in this entire movie is to essentially get the account numbers for the budget for the organization.
Right. Because they funneled a ton of money to fund this thing, but then scrapped it immediately. And so the Syndicate just like, well, you gave us the money, we just want it. So, but what it leads to is a remarkably subdued finale, and I say that with admiration.
Oh, it's fantastic
because they can easily end this film in some bombastic, crazy set piece, but they don't. They make it a very simple conclusion. It's the Syndicate has Benji. They have him strapped to a bomb. And they say that they will kill him if Ethan doesn't show up with the information from this disc by midnight. Ethan shows up and goes, well, here's the thing. I have the information you need, but I destroyed the disc and I have memorized everything on it. All right. So if you want the information, you need to meet me face to face, and you cannot kill Benji. Ethan makes the gamble that this guy will not put Ethan at risk because he wants what Ethan knows so badly. And it's amazing how it plays out, right? Because the bad guy folds. He goes, all right, fine. And so he deactivates the bomb. Benji's safe, but he goes, well, you can still kill the girl. So what it ends is Ethan continually putting himself in between her and the guys with the guns, knowing that they can't shoot him to get to her because he needs to be kept alive. He's basically he put himself in a position where the villain has to keep him alive. And it's awesome. Like, that is clever as shit. I love that. And then there's like, a little bit of a fight scene and a little bit of a gun shootout, and it ends with them putting the bad guy in this plexiglass box.
That's actually my favorite bit about that ending. The whole setup with the box.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a good ending. It's a good beginning. I think the movie's too weak overall for me to actually say I liked it. I actually found it quite disappointing.
Yeah. Kai Best Secret says, I think they were very proud of it. Yeah, I think they were. and I think they should be. That is a really great setup for an ending.
It was a good film overall. Like, I didn't watch it and go, that was bad.
Right.
But I must admit, for me, I felt the movie set up a lot of good things at the beginning that it didn't capitalize on.
Yeah.
And then came to a really good ending after overall a pretty mediocre movie. There is one thing I'd like to ask you, though, and if you know the answer, fill me in. Mm-hmm. Why is it called Rogue Nation?
Well, no, because Ethan straight up says that in the film when they're discussing what the Syndicate is, about how it's all these ex-intelligence agencies who now have no country of their own. Or presume that he calls the Syndicate itself a rogue nation.
It's tenuous, though, isn't it?
It's tenuous. It's tenuous, sure, but that's why they call it that, because he says that explicitly. He says those two words.
But he says that because that's the title of the movie, and they'd already decided.
Yeah, I guess.
Like, if it sounds like with the Syndicate, they were actually going for kind of like a Diamond Dogs thing. You know what I mean? Like a.
Well, they also make it out to say that the Syndicate's goal essentially is to create enough disruption across the world that they themselves can infiltrate in and take leadership across the. Yeah,
I think one of the most interesting themes in the movie is this idea of espionage agents without a country anymore. Because the idea of the fact that it's entirely staffed by espionage agents believed to be dead is one of the best most interesting elements in the movie, and another one that's kind of underexplored as the film goes on.
Right. But I am glad they do something. At least I think. I haven't seen Fallout, but I don't think that they are making the Syndicate out to be an ongoing threat.
No, but from what I understand, Fallout actually does carry across a lot more characters from this one than we've had in previous movies.
Well, yeah, I guess.
But no, I thought it was okay. I think Ghost Protocol's better. I will say.
Yeah, so Ghost Protocol, I would put money on as being the best Mission Impossible film.
No, I think you're probably right. It's either that or the first one. But
yeah, either that or one.
But the other difficulty there is it's so long between that one and the first one that comparing them is difficult because they're quite different.
Right. I just like the idea that Luther is still around. Like,
right. Well,
like, you would think of all the characters that
I like his role in Ghost Protocol as only in this one, so he can be in all the movies.
Right.
Just right at the end.
The thing about Luther is, like, I don't know if they've ever explicitly said like what he's actually good at.
Computers. It's computers.
But so is Benji.
Sure. Well, that's the difficulty with keeping him on board. But that's what he's supposed to be good at. He's like a master hacker.
Okay.
Because every movie is like, can I just keep the equipment after this too? And he takes the computers with him. That's why they never get to keep them.
Right.
So, I don't quite have as long today, but I do have something I want to talk about before we get out of here.
Okay.
If you watched our special episode, you will have seen a couple of days ago, I opened a package of things John sent me. I did cook the biscuits and gravy today and eat them. I didn't eat all of them because, well, I was sharing them. I didn't eat. I wouldn't have eaten 6.
Mine!
But I didn't even, like I say, I've actually eaten a lot today because it's my birthday tomorrow, but I'm taking a day off today. So I've been kind of delving into like birthday junk food with movies and things. And by the time
you have every right to do.
Yeah, but by the time I got around to cooking them, I'd like eaten a lot. So I was like, I'm gonna make these. I'm gonna make the whole packet as they instructs me. We'll prep it. I might not get them all eaten, but I did. I prepared the biscuits and the gravy, and I will say, I assume that they turned out exactly as they were supposed to. Like there were no like, okay, well this came out. This appears to be concrete and a model airplane.
I've baked these at 350 degrees, and I have a Mona Lisa.
Oh my god! I have the Omega particle that destroys warp drive from the television show Star Trek Voyager.
I am an alchemist. I've discovered the key to alchemy.
I have turned my oven into gold.
My oven is now literally the miracle machine. Like,
Tiny bit.
It's a mother box.
Technically, it's already your birthday. That's true. It is 8 minutes past 12 right now.
That's Happy birthday, Owen!
I am 31. Sinister Minister says biscuits and gravy. No way. How did it come out? Well, I would say they came out pretty well. I could believe that maybe in the middle the consistency wasn't, I don't know, exactly as it should be, but I've never had the genuine article to compare with, so you know what I mean?
The truth is, this is the best I could send Owen. Like, I couldn't send him, like, a tube of Pillsbury Grand's biscuits. I couldn't do anything like that. This was the best I could do.
There's always going to be a bit of guesswork. I'm fairly sure the gravy was fine, because that's just powder, water, and boiling until it...
thickens.
Well, you know, it said thickens, but I think congeals might be a better word. I was worried.
Oh, thank you, Tiny Beth. She says, and a happy late Labor Day to John. Well, here it is still technically Labor Day, so... If
you had mailed it to me fresh, I would have been worried you just sneezed in a cup, to be honest.
Aww.
I thought they were delicious, actually.
Yes! Yes!
So I will say, I said that I'd heard that they were like dumplings, and you said, no, they're not really like dumplings. If you'd given me one of these and said, what would you call that? I probably would have said a dumpling.
Fair enough.
And I don't say this to disparage you, because I think baked goods seem to be the area where, between English-speaking countries, you actually have the most difference in what we're talking about, right? Like, really old baked goods, things that have been around a long time. So here, a dumpling like that, you'd get that and you'd make it in a stew, but then you'd put it in the pot that you'd then bake the stew in for a while. So and they would go a little bit like that. You know what I mean? Like the crunchy.
Right. I mean, and like dumplings do the same. Dumplings do the same here. You're generally dumplings here are generally made in a liquid.
Right.
As well. I
would say these were lighter.
I would say over here the dumpling of choice is usually a potato dumpling, not a bread dumpling.
Sinister Minister says, yes, like a dumpling, but not wet. Right, yeah, so here what they tend to be done is, with a dumpling, you tend to make it and you put it in a stew pot, but you put it so that it's sort of half above the surface, half below, so they go like the biscuits I just did. They go like that on the top, and then on the bottom they're more soft.
Sure, and we do have meals like that. A lot of times it's chicken and dumplings, so it's like a chicken stew with the biscuit, or with the dumpling on top.
But these were obviously, they were lighter, and there was an element of like, I don't want to say pancakes to them, but you know what I mean? There was an element of that kind of savory.
Right. And the thing was, when you do a powdered biscuit mix, you do get a density that isn't generally there with a fresh made biscuit.
Sure. And they were lighter. They were lighter than dumplings, but you could see the relationship between the two. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I mean, and also dumplings usually made with like suet, you know, which is going to stodgy it up a little bit.
And I do think I said with the last stream that they are very close. There's just a lightness difference.
And then the gravy was like chicken and mushroom soup without chicken or mushrooms.
Well, yeah, it's a cream of something.
Yeah, it very much turned out like canned soup, which I was surprised by. But it was also pretty nice. I liked it.
I will say, I think I may have... Okay, I picked the country gravy because like it literally says like on the package. It shows it on biscuits. But... And this was a fault of me kind of being in a little bit of a rush. And I thought about it after I sent it. I think a better choice would have been what they call a pepper gravy.
Right.
Or
this was quite peppery.
Or straight up a sausage gravy.
I don't know if you've tried. Well, this was a sausage gravy, according to the thing. According to the pack.
I thought it said country gravy.
It did, but it also said further down that it was a sausage gravy. Let me see if I can find the pack. But you could tell that it was sausage gravy too.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the one you sent me. I've actually found it on Amazon.co.uk, so I can order more for myself if I want. McCormick sausage flavor country gravy. So it was It was a sausage gravy.
All right.
I did like it. I will say, by the time I was getting done with the meal, I'd had enough of the gravy. Like I was like, it was very rich.
I also I could have probably given you a tip about the gravy, about adding black pepper to it, because that is generally how it is served over here. Is you'll get that gravy with a noticeable amount of black pepper added.
And I bet that would have cut through a lot of the what's the right word? What's the word I'm looking for? It would have cut through a lot of the clagginess of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, I will even say sausage gravy is a bland flavor.
Sure.
And that's generally why the pepper is added, just to, kick it up a little bit.
But I liked it. I did like them. I thought they did fresh. I like to have done them. So the way I ended up with 3 big ones and 3 small ones, and I wish I'd had 6 medium-sized ones.
Yeah,
I think the small ones were a little too crunchy, and the big ones were a bit too stodgy, But no, I liked them, and I liked, like, I would never have cooked something like a dumpling and just put it on the plate and eaten it fresh with a sauce,
Right.
But actually, I thought it kind of worked. They were kind of light and fluffy. Okay, parts of them were sort of light and fluffy. And you could see where the whole thing was supposed to be. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think probably like you say, making them from a mix is not the truly authentic way to do it. But I think they turned out well enough that you could see what they were. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. And that's what I was hoping for. I was hoping for you to get the best approximation.
I would say, and obviously, like I said, I can only guess, but I would say that considering they came out of a pack, they turned out incredibly well. Because I don't know how stuff generally is in the maybe stuff that comes out of a pack in the US is just generally better, but here they have a tendency to turn out kind of always the wrong consistency.
I will give us credit over here. We've kind of nailed powdered foods. That's a weird thing to brag about.
It down to...
but I'm saying like there, and I feel like it's born from two things. I think it's born from one. I think is born from like the 50s. When
we had the 50s here as well, John.
like over here during the 50s, there was this big push for differently like packaged things, like
right,
like they made a point to advertise that, like, hey, this shit's frozen. Hey, this is powdered. You just add water. It was like this, it was this whole big thing about like food couldn't just be food anymore. It also had to be, scientifically amazing.
Right. Well, like we were talking about TV dinners earlier.
Right.
I remember that the TV dinner came around partly because people thought the brand TV sounded convenient.
Right.
So I did just look on Amazon, and I can actually buy the gravy mix. Pretty not too bad. Let me just pull up the price here. Because I've closed the window. I can get the gravy mix for £2.60 for a sachet if I really wanted it.
Jesus.
Yeah.
For just one.
But it's imported, right?
Right.
Enough.
Like I was about to say, like that packet right there was 70 cents for me.
Sure. But that's aimed at people who used to live in the US and now live here and only want it once a year for nostalgia.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I've also found I can get some of the same biscuit mix you sent me, but only in a pack of 22 for £63.
Damn!
If I want a whole lot of biscuits.
Because that was $2 for me.
Yeah, but how much would a pack of 22 cost you, John?
44.
It's funny. Let's see. I'm just gonna catch up with the chat here. Og says international shipping rates are insane. They certainly are. Og says most people make them from a box here. Homemade pancakes, etc., are kind of rare. Yeah, it's not as common here. So they are. I have seen people on the they keep making a mistake. They keep trying to ship here when we have a day called Pancake Day, which is it's around Easter. I never remember exactly where it is in relation to Easter, but it's supposed to be at the start of Lent, and the tradition is that you would use up everything in your cupboard in a pancake. You know what I mean?
Right.
But pancakes in Britain aren't like pancakes in the US. Pancakes in Britain are crepes. That's what we call pancakes. So they keep around Pancake Day trying to sell these branded pancake mixes from the US, but they're not to the recipe for British pancakes.
Right.
They're too thick, and they're I like American pancakes, but I like them when I want American pancakes, not on my traditional British pancake holiday. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, okay. Orcast brings up a good point. He goes, stop, drop, and roll, bomb shelters, and non-perishable. Yeah, there's I think that's another thing that kind of contributes to us favoring and doing our best to perfect the idea of a non-perishable food item, is that for even nowadays there's an American tradition of fatalism. There is a sort of idea that at any moment we are going to be just annihilated.
Right.
And it doesn't help that our politics have led us to that point.
While I'm looking at other things on Amazon I can get from America, do you think I should buy some Jiffy corn muffin mix? That's only a £1.25.
So those are an experience onto themselves.
Add egg and milk. Isn't that just flour? Isn't that just a box of corn flour? If you're adding the egg and the milk.
Okay. It never really dawned on me that you guys probably never cornbread over there.
No. We like nice
cornbread. Cornbread's all right. So cornbread has a very
good, right, because they gave it to the nice black man in Green
and that is a thing.
We're giving it to nice black men?
No, cornbread became a thing because of slavery. It is a cheap, relatively undesirable food that is also open to being improved on. You know what I mean? Like it's not good. It's not really good by itself, but it also works very well when you add very little to it.
What does this have to do with slavery, John?
Because
I don't feel like the beginning of this sentence and the end of this sentence are related to each other.
No, because it was given to slaves because it was a stupid, cheap, and terrible food, right?
Okay.
But within...
But no product manufactured by a brand called Krusteaz could be bad.
I think that's supposed to be Christo.
It's spelled Krusteaz, E-A-Z.
Yeah.
Christo?
But, yeah.
Spelt Krusteaz.
I don't fucking know, alright? No, I'm trying to explain history here, okay?
Alright.
So within the slave camps or whatever, like their own sort of culture started to rise. And part of that was specifically food. They were given, the pork chitlins. They were given the collard greens and cornbread, all relatively undesirable food to the rich white people. And then within these, slave encampments, they found ways to make it work and actually taste really good. And then by them doing that, once the Civil War happened and Reconstruction happened, that alone became part of like Southern culture, not just Southern Black culture.
Should I spend £10 on a Duncan Hines Moist Deluxe?
A cake?
Yeah, it is.
The Duncan Hines is fucking delicious. It's
okay, but how are his cake mixes, John?
Well, cake mixes start within the 1980s. Yeah.
I just imagine you going around licking Duncan Hines. Come here, Duncan. I will say this lemon supreme looks pretty good.
No, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, over here, these mixes and stuff are actually all pretty good. I mean, yeah, a homemade lemon cake will be better, right?
I've been sent down a rabbit hole of American food mixes. See, we do have some of the Betty Crocker stuff. I will say, Betty Crocker does nice pre-made icing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't even need a cake for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sinister Mentor says, Sinister Mentor says, although I do love soul food, ham hocks, etc. If you're not aware, soul food is the term used.
Well, I know what soul food is.
Okay.
I'm down with the kids.
But yeah, that's how a lot of that food came to be, though. They took undesirable bits of food and made it delicious. And it's why even to this day, it's very common for Black families to heavily season food. That's part of the culture now.
Soul food is also a really fantastic guitar effects pedal.
Yeah?
Yeah, it costs like $100, but it's a really good pedal. A nice
Cool.
rich distortion sounds good.
Right. Mm.
Not remotely relevant, but it's pretty good.
No. But yeah, that cornbread is part of that. Now, I think cornbread is delicious when you put like a pat of butter on it. And literally, that's all you need to do. You can put some butter on it, and it's really good.
So I asked you if I should try the corn muffins. And honestly, the whole length of conversation since then seems to be, don't try it because black people invented it, John. So I'm quite worried about you.
Well, actually, I'm worried about you if that's your interpretation. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, okay. So I got this kind of interesting history lesson about things. What I'm going to take from it is black people made this.
That's what you seem to be saying. You said did not sound enthusiastic about the corn muffins.
No, because corn, like, I could have just said, yeah, make them. But it's such a weird thing. Like, not weird. It's a... I don't even know how to properly explain this. Like, cornbread is hard to just give to someone without context, you know? Like,
all right. Well, I've been reliably informed by this box that it's America's favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the only one. It's like...
It can be the only one and the favorite. In fact, that's the easiest way to be someone's favorite.
Like, that's the thing about cornbread. Like, not many companies are itching to get in on the cornbread market. They're like, yeah, let Jiffy have it.
I'm not a big fan of Jack the Ripper, but he probably is my favorite Victorian Whitechapel serial killer.
If you were going to make cornbread, I would suggest...
You know what? I can prove that this is a lie, because I've also discovered Famous Dave's cornbread mix. Clearly not America's favorite.
Famous Dave's is a
pig.
chain of restaurants that specialize in making shitty versions of soul food.
Well, I'm sorry, but a cartoon pig wouldn't lead me astray on good food. What about Stovetop? Kraft Stovetop. We got 3 brands now here, John. These 2 are not calling themselves America's favorite.
Because they're not. Like, Jiffy makes cornbread. And that's fucking it. Like, that's all they do. Kraft and Famous Dave's, they do some other stuff. But Jiffy, they do fucking cornbread.
If I want it, by the way, I can also get a baking tray for cornbread shaped like little corn on the cobs.
Yeah.
Is that how far people take the cornbread thing?
No one does that. Like, when you get cornbread, you get a fucking square, maybe a circle if you're lucky. All right, but when you get cornbread, it is a goddamn rectangle, and that is it. Like, no one makes a shape out of cornbread. It's shitty bread. Like, don't try to dress it up. Like, but I will say I enjoy cornbread with butter and honey.
Fair enough.
You put those 2 on cornbread, it is delicious.
So what else can you get in the Bisquick range?
The Biscuits, well, they do pancakes and waffle mixes. Biscuits, of course.
I'm really concerned though, because I searched for Bisquick, and now I found something called Bisquick that is a track from an album that is apparently explicit, and I'm distressed.
Okay.
Sinister Minister's rectangle at best.
Yeah, like Sinister Minister knows what's up. Like I would probably be suspicious of a restaurant if I went there and got cornbread and they gave it to me shaped like a corn on the cob. I'd be like,
hey!
I would basically go, you guys don't know what the fuck cornbread is, do you? Like,
hey, where's the square?
it's so bad, but it's so good at the same time. Like,
it's pretty funny. I do like the idea of you going from restaurant to restaurant shitting on them for making More ambitious cornbread. No.
Orkia says Jiffy makes more than cornbread. They have banana bread, muffins, etc. too. Okay, Org, you walk down the street and you ask anyone, hey, what does Jiffy make? They're going to say cornbread.
See, here it would be padded envelopes. Alex says, the last time I made cornbread, I grabbed a banana bread by mistake also, and it still turned out well. Well, what if you get the banana bread by mistake, but you bake it in the corn-shaped trays?
Just people just losing their mind, like blood starts running from their nose.
Now you're a lazy cook and a liar.
You're trying to dress up cornbread by making it a banana bread.
I have found other Jiffy mixes. Golden yellow cake. But what's funny is it does just look like cornbread with chocolate frosting on.
and a basic golden yellow cake is fucking terrible. Like it is a tasteless cake. Like it is the white paper of cake.
White paper is very practical.
Sure, for writing stuff, not for eating.
Yeah, but you can't write stuff on a golden yellow cake either.
Watch me.
My manifesto will be heard.
on yellow cake.
The secret to all mankind is, sir, this bit appears to have been eaten by the mice. No.
No. That's part of the meeting.
To be fair, there are some cakes where that would last longer than paper.
Yeah, the yellow cake is probably one of them. No, like, see, now I want to. Now I want you to try cornbread because it's such a weird fucking thing.
We've had enough of this and your anti-cornbread agenda on this show.
I love cornbread, but I can admit that it's kind of fucking terrible too. Like, it's gritty. It tastes like nothing. But like I said, for some reason that nothing taste does very well with other tastes.
Like, all you keep talking and all you seem to be like saying is that it's marginally better than hunger.
Marginally better than what?
Hunger.
Well, yeah, I mean it is, but marginally.
So what's creamed corn? I hear a lot about Americans eating creamed corn.
Oh, God.
Is it just like
cream
the corn equivalent of mushy peas?
It is corn. It's sweet corn that has been crushed to the point where like the insides of the corn has made into like a creamy consistency.
Oh yeah, it's basically mushy peas, but corn.
Yeah.
Do you know I've already decided what I'm gonna send you on the next package I send you?
Oh?
I'm gonna send you a little tub of English mouthwash. Because I want to see if you find it delicious.
Sinister says my mother makes cream corn. Okay, Sinister, you might actually know more than I do.
That sounds like a playground insult. Your mother makes creamed corn.
Yeah, well, your mother makes mushy peas. You take it back.
What does that mean? I don't know.
Well, it's like there used to be this insult like back in like the 60s where it was like your mother goes to college. Like what?
All right. Way to go, Mom.
It's like sweet barf. Yeah, kind of is.
That's always the best one when it's leaving.
Cream corn is pretty disgusting. But I will say I enjoy cream corn in other things.
So I'm gonna be the annoying English person and get all these out of the way then. What is a sloppy Joe?
A sloppy Joe.
That always sounds rude rather than a meal.
Okay, so sloppy Joe is a thing of contention.
Okay.
Now,
couldn't just be an easy answer, could it?
No. Okay, so sloppy Joe is often mistaken for what some people call barbecue.
What?
and they're not the same.
Well,
Okay?
I know what a barbecue is.
No, I'm not talking about the fucking implement. All right, just Sloppy Joe and barbecue both are basically ground beef mixed up with a sauce.
Okay.
Now, a barbecue is ground beef mixed up with fucking barbecue sauce.
Makes sense.
That's what it is. All right. A Sloppy Joe is ground beef mixed up with a sauce that is like more vinegary and savory. It's more salty, vinegary, a little bit peppery, I would say.
Okay, so it's like a very specific thing.
It's closer to like a buffalo sauce, if you ever had that.
Like Worcestershire sauce?
No, I would probably say that I wouldn't be surprised if Worcestershire sauce was in Sloppy Joe mix.
Kind of like umami flavor, like not exactly like bolognese, because obviously bolognese is a very specific thing, but that kind of area, you know what I mean?
So the most famous Sloppy Joe mix maker is a brand called Manwich.
Cool.
Because they used to try to market Sloppy Joes as a man's fucking sandwich. All right.
Yeah. Get out of here,
It's a children's
ladies,
sandwich. It's a children's sandwich. Yeah. So, but they're not the same thing. Yeah, I like them. They're okay.
So it's a sandwich.
Yeah, it's sort of. Yeah. It's very difficult to eat as a sandwich, though. That's why they call them Sloppy Joes, is because they fucking gets everywhere.
Okay, I'm looking at pictures of this. This doesn't look like a sandwich. This looks like a dish.
Yeah.
You Americans really will commit to a traditional way of eating something, even if it's absurd, right? Yeah, it's a sandwich. It's just got the consistency of water running like a spring from the center of your hands, spraying out in all directions. Sandwich!
That's pretty much what happens too. Well, I mean,
you lift up the bread.
It is a fucking sandwich. No, it is a sandwich. All right,
because you picked up this thing in the bread, the sauce would just run down the side like a fountain in the park.
It is meat and sauce in between two pieces of bread. That's a fucking sandwich.
I bet it's in between the bread for approximately 7 seconds.
If you're a fucking idiot, like, yeah, if I pick up this sandwich on one corner completely vertical, yeah, that's probably going to happen. Just like every other sandwich. But like if you hold it horizontally in two hands, you can keep a good deal of it within the bread.
And you maintain that's the best way of eating this.
Yeah. Like, it's convenient.
America was a mistake. With your casserole pizzas and your liquid-filled sandwiches and your bubblegum mouthwash and your mouthwash drinks.
Okay, all right. So are you saying that if my cheese is melted in a sandwich, that, it can't be a fucking sandwich because it might run out the sides?
No, because melted cheese is only a liquid for the duration of the heating and becomes a solid again once the heating is over, and you know that.
So if anything ever falls out the side of a sandwich, suddenly, no longer a sandwich because it fell out.
If 85% of the contents of the sandwich fall out of the sides, then it's no longer a sandwich.
That's not what happens. Like I said, if you're an
looking
idiot,
at these
it
pictures.
will.
Unless the cow's still alive, that's dripping.
It's a sandwich, all right?
I'm looking at one here where, like, 2/3 of the Sloppy Joe isn't even in the bread. And no one started eating it yet.
But here's the thing, it's not like they hide that fact. It's in the name of the sandwich. It's sloppy, all right?
Yeah, but you know what's not in the name of the sandwich? Sandwich.
You know what's a really inconvenient way to eat something? Wrapped in a stomach. But you guys still fucking do that over there. Like,
no, we don't.
Haggis?
Yeah, that's mostly done in plastic these days, and you take it off after you're done cooking it. You don't eat it in the stomach. That's just a cooking method. You take the meat out afterwards, and you put it on a plate, and then you eat it.
Whatever.
It's like a casing.
You know, it's also kind of inconvenient eating shit out of a paper cone. Like, that's kind of stupid.
Who does that? What are you talking about?
Fish and chips comes in a cone.
No, it doesn't. Sometimes people serve, like, chips in a cone, but only the fries, the same way you get them in a little paper packet at McDonald's. You don't get the fish in a cone. If you get, like, a full meal, they wrap it up in paper. And then you open up the paper when you get home. It's nice. It used to be newspaper, but then they changed what was in newsprint, and that became a very bad idea. Who told you we eat fish and chips from a cone? Like an ice cream?
I don't know. I saw a movie one time where they stopped the fish and chips thing and he walked away with a cone. I figured it was all in there.
No, we do sometimes serve the chips in a cone, but that's just because it's an easy way of selling it. You know what I mean? But you wouldn't have like a full fish and chips in a cone. That'd be ridiculous.
Or kid says, hey, even we say that deep dish is not pizza. I'll tell that to Chicago people.
I was thinking,
but I'm with Oregon. I do not like deep dish pizza. It's a fucking lasagna wrapped in a crust.
But all these words are good.
Yeah, but that's not what... okay, fuck it. Jonathan's pizza rant, all right? Pizza is really good to pick up in your hands and eat, right? It's a hand food. You eat it with your hands, all right? In fact, we make fun of people when you see them eating pizza with a fork and knife, all right? Because it's ridiculous, all right? It's a self-contained thing. You don't need any implements to eat a pizza, all right?
And what you're saying is that deep dish Chicago deep dish pizza doesn't do that. So it's not really pizza because you can't pick it up without keeping all the toppings on the thing.
I'm saying that you can pick it up, but you can't actually eat it that way.
Okay, and you said it wasn't a pizza. You said it was like a lasagna on a crust.
I am absolutely not following this because I know where you're going.
But you did say that, right? A little bit like a sandwich where all the fillings don't stay in the bread. Isn't a sandwich, Jonathan? It's just a dish served with bread, Jonathan.
No, a sandwich is something in between bread.
You fail! Right? You fail, sir! So, in the olden days, before they invented plates, this is true, by the way, they used to just bake a big loaf of bread. They would cut out the middle and serve the food in the bread. Was that a sandwich? Was all food a sandwich?
I mean, no, I would, that's more like a grinder.
Yeah, King Henry VIII was looking in and was like, that's a hot dude.
No, like this is why I don't think a hot dog is a sandwich. All right, like
should I tell you why I don't think a hot dog is a sandwich? Because the people who have the conversation about whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich are tedious and obnoxious people. But carry on.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Is like a sandwich specifically is something. A filling of some sort between two pieces of bread, right?
Okay.
One on bottom and one on the top.
So
right?
is a shelf of bread at the supermarket a sandwich?
Yes. If I was going to eat the metal shelf between the two loaves of bread on top of each other, yes, that would be a metal shelf sandwich. All right?
Okay.
The Chicago I'm not saying that Chicago deep dish pizza isn't pizza per se. It's just a shitty pizza, right?
Fair enough.
Brooklyn style pizza is way better. Tiny Best Secret says, sorry, but did you say meat, sauce, bread equals sandwich? if constructed properly. The sandwich is the construct, all right? It's not the food.
Tiny Best Secret says, so the real definition of a sandwich to John is if the bread is on top, not alongside. So, yeah, so a hot dog wouldn't be a sandwich, because that's like either side and under.
Right, and I don't think hot dogs is a sandwich.
But then Tiny Best Secret says, so God knows what French baguettes are. Yeah, so what if you make a baguette sandwich, but you slice it horizontally down, and put the filling in like that in the top, rather than slicing all the way down? Which is quite common to do if you have like a small baguette and you want to preserve the integrity of the sandwich rather than, you know, have it in two parts where it's going to come loose a lot. Is that no longer a sandwich?
No, I would say that no, it's not. It's like a sub.
But isn't a sub a type of sandwich?
Sure, but it's not. It's.
Were you about to say, but it's not a sandwich?
Right. Okay. So like. It's one of those, like, all subs are sandwiches, but not all sandwiches are subs, right?
Okay.
It's, like, it's, so once again, that's a...
So if I take a small baguette, let's say small because it's all one piece, and I don't want to slice it horizontally, like, top to bottom, because then, like, I'll have two separate pieces and my sandwich is more likely to fall apart, right? So instead I slice down like you'd slice a hot dog, right?
Sure.
And I put the same fillings I was going to put in my sandwich in there, like, I don't know, ham, lettuce, mayo... Right? That's not a sandwich?
It is a sub sandwich.
Okay, but that doesn't meet your definition of a sandwich, John.
No, okay, no, it does, because it's a sub sandwich, all right? A sub sandwich is not a sandwich. The same thing as a sandwich.
Do you mean sub roll, or do you mean subsection of sandwich?
I mean, like, not as good. It's substandard. No,
you probably eat them all the time then. Sandwich cop.
Okay, it's
John like, the Sandwich Police.
Okay, it's like a fucking panda bear, right? A panda bear isn't actually a bear, but they call it a panda bear.
But it is a bear. They changed that.
Isn't it a marsupial?
No, it's definitely not a marsupial because you only get marsupials in Australia. They used to think it was a type of raccoon.
Okay, a better one. A koala bear.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, a koala bear is not technically a bear, but they call it a koala bear.
But is a koala bear a sandwich?
It could be if I put it between two pieces of bread. And if I put it into a hollowed out piece of bread, then it's going to be a koala sub sandwich.
Okay. But I still think a sloppy joe is not a sandwich.
And I don't think the UK is a real country, all right?
No, technically it's a state made up of 3 countries.
Exactly. So I'm right about the UK, you're wrong about sloppy joes.
Except by that definition, the US isn't a country.
But we have a federal government.
Yeah, so do we. Sort of. Well, technically, we have a state government for the whole thing that just acts like one.
Right.
I love that Owen is singing his birthday by discussing the definition of a sandwich with his friend. Oh, is there someone else here in this debate about sandwiches? There are no friends here.
Mexico goes 4 countries, Owen.
That's true. Nobody cares about Wales. See,
I was going for Northern Ireland.
Yeah, I know. But Northern Ireland's had enough suffering at the hands of the English.
That's right. Enough suffering by the hands of the United States. All 49 of us. Since Mr. says 4, yeah, it's Wales, England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People often forget Northern Ireland because they know that Ireland, that Ireland found independence in the early 20th century. They don't realize that not all of Ireland went independent.
Right.
And so there's still the Northern Ireland, which is where all the good stuff was. We didn't want to let that go.
We need to keep the rocks and sheep.
It does actually have quite good like value in stuff. It's where
does it?
The valuable parts were and things like that. It was the best bit. by like what we were interested in standards, not by like subjective. This is the nicest bit standards. We kept it because it was a value thing.
Well, if we ever did have an Irish contingency, we don't anymore.
It was where most of the Unionists were who didn't want to leave. I mean, the thing about the Irish War of Independence, it's interesting because Ireland was horribly mistreated by the English for hundreds upon hundreds of years. But so was Scotland and so was Wales. Ireland just always had a better chance of getting away because it wasn't physically attached to the UK. But the actual War for Independence itself was not something that had huge public support. It was actually thought of as being very, very opportunistic. Most of the push for independence came not from the vast majority of people, but after the response of the British government to the first like blows from for independence. The British government responded like massively aggressively, and that kind of sealed the deal by bringing the rest of the population of Ireland on board. And actually, there are a lot of people who think that had it not been for Ireland joining the European Union, when the European Union came around, Ireland would ultimately have come back because it wouldn't have been sustainable on its own, which is interesting, I think.
Sinister Minister says, I just found out that my name came from Ireland. I'm pretty sure minister is actually Latin in origin.
But yeah. No, Ireland's interesting. I mean, I'm of the opinion, like a lot of people say, do you think Ireland should rejoin the UK? And I am of the opinion that I don't think that will ever happen now. Yeah. Now that they're capable of being independent, there's too much bad blood and bad feeling towards the English. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It just deservedly so. It just I think it's much more likely now that the result of Brexit will be that the Northern Ireland will actually join the Republic eventually.
Well, I mean, it's not nearly as dramatic, I would say, as what's going on over there, but I kind of feel the same way about Puerto Rico now. Like I feel like after I think we were nearing the cusp of them becoming state, mostly because in their most recent referendum in Puerto Rico, the people themselves voted for statehood.
Right.
It was just going to take the federal government to go, okay, we'll play ball and we'll make you a state.
And they've been horribly mistreated for a very long time, but that had kind of eased off, if you know what I mean.
Right. And then the hurricane happened, and I think now we won't see that happen for a very long time, mostly because especially within the Trump administration, right? Because if they would elect statehood there, then Trump has to basically face the fact that he let a state of the United States suffer.
Right.
And
there's a fundamental difference, isn't there? Like, most previous presidents go back far enough, you'll get to a point where they just wouldn't have given a shit about Puerto Rico, because why would they? They were not very highly represented in the US thing. There was no political impetus for them to give a crap.
Right.
And then more recently, you've had a different problem, which is most people who would run for president and would become president would be familiar with the situation in Puerto Rico and know exactly what's going on there, but it's not a very high visibility situation. You know, even if you're president, you know, it's not going to be top of anybody's list. So I think, you know, probably Clinton, Bush, and Obama probably all felt the same way about Puerto Rico, which is eventually they'll become a state. There are more important things to worry about, and right now, while they're not a state, we don't have to worry too much, so we just carry on, and they're not very visible. Whereas with Trump, you're in a very different situation, which is, I could honestly believe he didn't even know that it wasn't just a completely other country.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, there are plenty of average Americans who don't realize that Puerto Rico is an American dominion. Because it's just commonly misunderstood. This came up a couple of years ago when a Puerto Rican won the lottery.
Right.
Everybody lost their shit. that Puerto Rican shouldn't be able to enter the U.S. lottery. So, that stuff comes up a lot.
Well, it's funny because it happens every 4 years. It literally happens every 4 years. Like when people watch the election results, Puerto Rico gets the vote. Like,
right.
They get the vote in the U.S. elections, and they do actually carry, I think, 2 electoral votes. So whenever that pops up, everyone goes, "Wait, what? Why does Puerto Rico have like?" Because they're basically a state already. Just
right. Yeah, except without states' rights.
Right.
Extensively. Like, I don't think they actually get to elect a representative, right?
I don't believe so. I believe it is. I think. I can't remember how it works, but I think they get assigned to a different, like,
right,
representative. Like, it's kind of like, okay, this guy is his vote is going to count for Wisconsin, and then this time around Puerto Rico.
So one of the things I know about
it's something weird like that.
One of the things I know about this, which I think is really interesting, is when the U.S. was trying to gain independence from Britain, they came up with that argument, no taxation without representation, which was a really good slogan because, as I'm sure I've mentioned before, one of my favorite facts about human psychology is we're more likely to believe that something is a good piece of advice or a good slogan if it rhymes. It's just that effect of the rhyme sort of feeling satisfying tricks your brain into thinking the advice is better. But it is good advice. It's a good message. But that's why those things catch on.
Right.
So we went to Britain, and you went to Britain, to us. I'm pretending I'm American now. The revolutionaries went to the British government with that point, and Britain's response was, well, no, see, here's the thing, right? You do have representation, because even though you don't get to elect a representative, we all care about you, so it's okay that we get to decide what happens to you, because we are represented you. Which is really dumb.
Right.
But that's exactly the same political argument used to justify Puerto Rico's position in the U.S. now.
Right. It's dumb.
Yeah.
Like, especially, I mean, there was for a while, you could make the argument that the people of Puerto Rico repeatedly, when the question, it would come up just about every 4 years. Like, someone would make a referendum, like, hey, statehood, guys. Most of those lost. Most of those referendums actually lost. The people themselves said no. It's actually only been, I want to say, since Clinton that any of those referendums ever passed.
So my understanding on this is that that's because there used to be a stronger push for full independence than there used to be. So they didn't want to vote for becoming a state, because then people would say, when the issue of independence came up, well, no, they just voted to become a state, so why would they want independence? You know what I mean? Whereas really, it's 2 separate questions, which is, do you want to be independent? Yes or no? As long as you're going to be part of the US, do you want to have full states' rights? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But apparently the statehood thing it was very difficult for independent to pass that referendum while also trying to get a lot of independence. But from what I understand, like, there are very few people alive in Puerto Rico today who remember when it wasn't part of the US now. You know what I mean? There are less.
It's a changed demographic.
Right.
And also there are very few people in Puerto Rico now who do not also have some version of relation living in the US.
Right. I mean, how long has it been part of the US now? Is it since the 50s?
Oh, shit, I thought it was earlier. I want to say 40s or something like that. It was... Maybe it's... God, I don't even remember.
Oh, wow. Apparently it was annexed in...
Yeah, wasn't it something to do with the Cuban-American War? I thought that was a result of that. Puerto Rico was kind of
so apparently it was annexed in the very late 1890s, and then they began a more formal sort of respectful relationship in the 1900s. And then, so I'm reading on Wikipedia now, and then Puerto Ricans started to get U.S. citizenship it looks like they started to get U.S. citizenship in the 30s.
Okay. Yeah.
And then 1947, it starts to become a proper territory with more rights.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So from 1898 to 1950, you're talking about just a colony, really.
Right.
And then from 1950 to say 1980, you still got a lot of people alive who are going to remember
that.
When it wasn't even that, you know.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm a little afraid to say this because it's going to sound like a pretty obnoxious and arrogant assumption, but I can't imagine there's too many people in Puerto Rico now who don't feel in some sort of way as American.
Well, I don't know, because you've got the issue there, which is that I think the difficulty with that is to feel American, you have to feel like you're part of a joint culture.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work when other Americans don't think you're American?
Well, I mean, true, but you look at like places like Hawaii or Alaska as well. Like they actually have very different lifestyles and cultures.
But I think Puerto Rico is, I mean, Alaska, I think, has no trouble feeling American, because I think they're made to feel American, because America really wants people living in Alaska.
Right.
So the Russians can't get back there and get that beautiful oil. So Alaska gets a lot of money. Hawaii's always had a huge amount of tourism, so it's seen very positively. Puerto Rico is often not seen positively by mainland Americans, I would say.
I suppose.
I think, and then so they're disconnected, and they feel disadvantaged, and they feel ostracized. I can't imagine that makes you feel. I think it'd be very much like the situation in Hong Kong, where Hong Kong.
Oh yeah, that makes more sense.
So Hong Kong, they did a really interesting social study with Hong Kong. Last year, because it's 20 years since they left the UK and returned to China, but they have a special administration situation. They aren't fully. China isn't able to run Hong Kong as they run the rest of China.
Right.
They don't have the right to do that. And what they found was that most of the people in Hong Kong do not see themselves as Chinese and do not wish to further enter Chinese status. You know, they don't want to become more like mainland China at all. They're very hostile to it. They don't want to do it. But when they asked them how much they felt about the idea that they were British then instead, nobody felt like that. In fact, they were very hostile to the British for letting them go back. But they didn't feel like, even when they were controlled by the British, that they were necessarily British. And so there's that odd kind of thing there where the people in Hong Kong feel, actually, I don't know what the word would be, but Hong Kongese, if you know what I mean. They feel like they're from Hong Kong. And I bet that's how Puerto Ricans feel, to be honest.
Yeah, you know, I would agree with that. I would probably put my money on that. But I say we should probably start wrapping up this show.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get some sleep.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So yes, thank you all for watching and tuning in.
Oh, can I just read this last comment because it's great?
Sure.
Mr. Minister says Trump is a Marxist, not Carl Groucho. I thought it was really good.
Nah, Groucho Marx is far more clever.
Oh, we had some comments in the Twitch chat too from Reaper398 and just a Twitch user who says, "Is a hamburger a sandwich?" We were very behind on that chat. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, Twitch.
I refreshed and they weren't there earlier, and then they popped in.
We will get better with Twitch. this is still only what, our third week.
Yeah, pretty much
doing Twitch. So yeah, we will get better about monitoring both sides.
Let's do it.
All right. So until next time, I have been one of your hosts, Jonathan Cadot, and with me as always has been Owen Adams. Owen, where can they find you, man?
Go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Owen Adams, though not for the next few days because I'm taking a little time off.
Yeah. And you can find me on Twitter, which is @JohnCPerson, or you can just keep following this channel right here, this content. And yeah. So next week, tune in. Actually, by next week, we should both have some initial opinions probably about Spider-Man, huh?
Well, I already have some initial opinions about Spider-Man.
Bring back the puddles!
Yeah, bring back the puddles.
Specifically, the PS4 game coming. So tune in for that. But yeah, until next time, have a good one.
See ya.